are live! Hello, everyone! Hopefully, everything is working as intended, because I threw this entire stream setup together because I am always prepared. Always. Always prepared. How is everyone doing today? Everyone doing good, I hope? I hope you're having a good time. You know what? Does anyone want background music? I didn't plan for background music, but I can throw on some background music. Does anyone want that? I want to see some thoughts in the chat. Because I realize if I don't have background music, my headphones are going to fall asleep. How do I do a poll? There's a way to do polls. Okay, all right. Let me. Where do I find window audio output capture? I suppose. Desktop audio. That source. Let's throw it down at the bottom. Down here. I'll turn it down. Desktop audio. It should be playing, but for some reason it's not. Global settings. Desktop audio device. No. Why is it? Chat. There we go. There we go. That should be it. Hopefully Microsoft doesn't mind me borrowing their soundtrack for a little while. All right. How is everyone doing? Let me adjust some of this mess a little bit. I didn't have the chat flowing on screen, so I can adjust things. So let's see. Screen capture. Properties. That's not what I needed. I need filters. Filters. Edit filters. Add. Crop. We'll just make that a 10. No, not 10. 100. 1,000. Too much. 500. A little too much, I think. 450. Yeah, that should work. Right, 450. Might have to come back in and readjust this. Actually, you know what? I'm going to make these 250 apiece, because I know we have much larger chats to get through. And then bottom. Let's make it 250 as well. Make it a nice square shape. Okay. Come on, grab the thing. There. Oh, that's lovely. That's almost perfect. I'll stretch it a little bit just to make it fit. There we go. Unless we just... There we go. All right. Looking... Oh, shit. Looking much better. Looking much better. How's everyone doing today? I hope you're all having a good day. First, I want to admire your hard work and excited for Volume 6, and again, I admire the way you just fixed one of the worst volumes yours in everyone's work. I appreciate the appreciation. Really, this was one of the toughest volumes to do. In many ways. So there was a lot of lows, but the thing about this volume that's also great is there were a lot of highs, and it was an absolute blast working with the Sketchy Huntsman. The amount of workload, though, Jesus Christ, it's 5 hours and 20 minutes long. This is probably like the longest written composed work that I've ever made. Aside, like, page-wise, it's not. I have written a much longer works page-wise, but this is up there with one of the longest things I've ever written. So, but yes, I am here to answer your questions. Now, the way this is going to work, I have taken several comments from different videos. I've gotten through, like, I am mostly prepared for this stream. And to kind of streamline things, I went through all the videos backwards, taking the most important questions from the finale, the 4th video, and I got halfway through the 3rd video before I ran out of time this week to actually gather all these questions. And believe me, it actually takes time to gather these questions because you're looking for things that fit, that are actually questions that need answering, or questions that weren't answered in later videos. You got to sort through all that kind of stuff. There are some questions that had some I don't want to say controversial, but like, or they had controversial or overlapping subject matter. And I had to be very careful with how I chose those, just because I don't want to get demonetized on this stream. But if you want to ask one of your questions directly, there are 2 other avenues you have. Well, technically 3, but one is very, very untrustworthy. The first one is just leaving a comment in the chat, but we have over 113 viewers. God damn, 113. You can leave your chat in the chat line. I might not see it. I probably won't see it. It's going to go by too fast. And don't tag me in it. Don't tag me in it, because it's just going to annoy me. Because then everyone's going to want to tag me in it. Second one, super chatting. If you super chat, or if you go to my Streamlabs, which isn't on screen, but I believe should be in the description. Let me double check that. Yes, it is the first link in the description. If you go there and send me a chat, I will see it and I will answer it as soon as possible. Sometimes I may be like a question that I already know is going to be in here, so I'm just going to be like, hey guys, wait a minute, I'll get to it, don't worry. But there's just a way to support the channel. Thirdly, if you're already a supporter of the channel through Patreon, or through Dashy's Patreon, or through Fatman's Patreon, and you're in the Tundra, we have a questions channel that's specifically for that. I added everyone, so you should be able to find that very easily. Go there, make sure you follow the rules, and submit a question, and I'll try and get to those at the very end of the stream. Abe, it's less you posted your comment 6 days after you said they'd be up. It's more you posted literal novels. That's more the issue. Don't worry, I have them. They're in here. I know that, because I spent like half an hour trying to get them all. Because you had some very good questions, but also some weird ones, and we'll get to that. Is Frostbite going to have a cameo in Atlas? Probably not. I mean, really, it depends on the artists, because the artists do a lot of those little meme things. Oh, who was it that did the final art for the tribe? That threw in Miley Cyrus as a meme. That was wonderful. So, anyway, let's get to the questions. So, Justin DeFanny says, I'm curious as to why Salem hasn't made a debut yet. Perhaps she'll be brought back after the story of her and Oz is told, if it is kept. She will make a debut at some point. She has had basically these big hints in Volume 5, like small hints in Volume 4, bigger hints in Volume 5. Not entirely sure if I'm going to have like a stinger for Volume 6 to show Salem in all her glory, but I do want her to show up. Keeping her back to kind of create the suspense for this villain. You don't just keep throwing your villain at the screen, having them do nothing. Having them in the background, working their machinations, doing their thing, that's way more impactful than when they do show up doing something and you're like, oh, this is why you're a threat. Oh, you have a giant whale. That's cool. Justin Brummett. Yeah, lots of people wrote paragraphs. Mupa's right. So, Justin Brummett, this is a very frequently asked question. Is Shiloh the father? And if anyone that follows the Sketchy Huntsman Twitter account or Mupa herself at Erica DC on Twitter, if you follow them, then you would know that yes, in fact, Shiloh is Vernal's father. And there were a couple people that were up in arms about that a little bit, or up in arms with him getting any kind of characterization at all. Shiloh turned out to be one of the more interesting characters to flesh out in this series. He, and for the record, this all goes back to Mupa. The Mupa is at fault for this entire idea. She drew her little comics, and it got stuck. It got stuck in everyone's mind, my mind especially, and I'm just like, all right, maybe, and then the more I kind of thought about it, like, it makes complete sense that Raven would have slept with him, because, like, she'd probably be hard up for a lay at some point after leaving Ty. And for the record, it's not that she's kind of married to him or anything. There were some people that were like, oh, why would she marry him? It's like, they're not married. The running theory is that Raven does the rounds at the Branwyn camp, and she just so happens it be him that wound up being the father figure, or that wound up being the father. So that's the backstory there. There's really not much love lost. I think she has a special softer spot in her heart for him a little bit, but it's only a little bit more than any average member of the tribe. She maybe just bashes on him a little bit more. She's a little more tsundere towards him, in the sense that she will physically abuse him. Okay, and now moving on. Yeah, he didn't sleep with her, she slept with him. That's how that worked. She would just regularly drag people into her tent. Raymond, critical question. We all must know. Did the vodka bottle last the fixing or not? It did last the fixing, because here's a little secret, people. I don't actually drink. No, here's the thing. I do drink for those videos. Like, when I actually do that, when I pour the vodka, with the exception of my complete breakdown series, where it was, in fact, water. I have a whole behind-the-scenes video of me chugging glasses of water to try and drain the bottle realistically. With the exception of that video, every time you've seen me drink on screen has been real vodka. And I have actually been regularly increasing the amount of vodka that I am drinking from this volume, from every volume forward. I am, however, going to be stopping that tradition after this one, because I literally poured probably 3 shots worth of vodka and downed it in one sitting without having eaten anything all day. I was in a headspace, man, and I did not like it. I can't keep doing that. And also, Volume 5 is sort of like the perfect place to kind of stop that tradition. Volume 5 is so bad, it needed it, and now I think after this it's going to be a little bit easier. Who knows, maybe Volume 8 I'll bring it back. We'll see. Because despite the fact that I did kind of give it a bit of a defense, Volume 8 is terrible. So, Anonson basically asked why I kept John's amping Healbot semblance. Well, because a lot of people don't realize this in the lore that I've changed. When you go back and watch the videos, semblances don't operate on an aura-to-aura basis. Like, they're not powered by aura. They're powered by, like, sort of an intangible muscle of sorts. They're a part of the body, in a sense. So when they do things like that, so when he's actually amping aura and amping his own aura, it's expending it's actually making him exhausted. It's actually exhausting him, and it's expending a resource. And he can't, theoretically, one thing he can do is actually supercharge his aura, and then use his aura to offset his exhaustion. But that only makes his aura last slightly longer than everyone else, because the feedback loop eventually spins to 0. it's him maybe managing to stretch his aura and his ability. And yes, he can still amp their semblances. His ability allows him to do both. So it's kind of he's a support character, and that's what John is meant to be in this dynamic. He's not a main character. He's not a frontline. He can do frontline combat. He can do that, but he's more at home being a defensive healer role. John is a paladin. And that's kind of the direction I want to take him. Yeah, in Canon RWBY, there is no reason John can't use his semblance on himself indefinitely, because he just charges his aura, which charges his semblance, which charges his aura, and just keeps on going. Yojak talked about how there was so much talking. I actually responded to this. And this is where the crop comes into play. Okay, 1 minute, folks. This is why you gotta be careful. Gotta be careful with the cropping. Top 150. Okay. So I had to make a note. So much talking. I mean, these episodes are really good, really better than RT ever could dream, but as an audience member, I really wish you fit more fight scenes. And I respond to this. You don't need fight scenes to be interesting, and me and Fat Man talk about this, I believe in our actually Arcane Episode 2 reaction. A lot of people took our lessons from Volume 5's reaction and Volume 5's criticism very differently than what was intended. We didn't quite clarify on that. It's that there's talking with nothing happening in the original Volume 5. You don't have to. It's fine. It's fine. So I just wanted to clarify that when there's talking and there's things happening, like there is an actual conveyance of information, it's not just people sitting around waiting for things to happen. They're actually trying to figure things out. They're shuffling around. They're doing things. They're trying to take an active thing, a proactive response to things. That's what's important. It's our characters feeling lifeless and limp. There's a reason why Shinji getting the robot is a meme. Is because he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it, and everyone wants him to. And then when he does, we're like, finally, he's gotten in the fucking robot. So that's where that is. Diner scenes. You know, Fatman points out there's a lot of really good diner scenes. There's a lot of them, but like you have to do them well. Now, this is sadly one that I can't answer myself. Let me do stretches on this. This is going to be a pain in the ass to adjust this entire time, isn't it? Okay. I wish I could address this. I saved this thinking that Fatman was going to be on the stream, and again, sadly, he couldn't join me today. No problem, Yo Jack. Everyone roast Yo Jack in the chat. Everyone at him and roast him. It's fine. I'm kidding. You're awesome, man. Don't bully the Yo Jack. So I wish I could tell you. It did. Someone said that. Oh, no wonder he hated it because you still had like the everyone coming together at the very end thing, and we did. That I remember was one of his critiques. One of his big issues was you had everyone come together at the very end, and it was. He found that annoying. So it's. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he did have issues with this volume. And there are issues with this volume. People point out some flaws, and that's fine. I'm eager to get to them. Because unlike I don't want to throw too much shade. One of my biggest issues with the Canon RWBY is that when things are a broken or a problem or something along those lines, they don't really take responsibility. They don't say, yeah, we screwed up, we apologize, or that's an issue. We'll try to retcon that, or we'll try to fix that later. They don't acknowledge when they've failed very often. They've only really started doing it about earlier volumes now. And that's a real bad problem if you're taking, what, 6-7 years to actually acknowledge your flaws in your story that quickly. So that's kind of a... I wish I could give you more on this one. I honestly do. Hopefully I can maybe drag Fat Mount to a different stream and we can actually get this question out of the way. But yeah. This one gets partially cut off, but you know, it's fine. Claudia Colo. I was expecting to hear an explanation on what would happen to bird powers upon Raven or Crow's death. Would it transfer to the last person they were thinking about? Would it return to Osbin? Hopefully this will be brought up in in upcoming seasons. A lot of people were asking why the bird powers weren't elaborated on, and it's like, they're bird powers? Like, I get that they're a big thing, but like, you have an immortal wizard here inside the body of a crime lord. Like, bird powers, immortal crime lord combination. That's literally the one that takes precedent there. So that's why characters didn't really ask about it, or really focus on it, because why they made such a big deal of the whole birds thing in the Volume 5 originally, I have no clue. Now, other than that, what would happen to the bird powers? I hadn't considered that. I have not thought about what would happen to the bird powers upon death. So I don't know. Maybe I'll find a way to address it in future seasons. Maybe they get passed on. Maybe they're stuck with Crow and Raven. Considering how the Maidens work, it'd be interesting if they do pass on. All right, so Analyze Golden. Which one was this? All right, so this is his comment is talking mostly about Malachite, Leo, Arslan, Ren, and Nora being wasted this volume. He doesn't understand the twins. Thank you for the comment, Analyze Golden. The Lionheart feels pointless, and Arslan. Basically, these characters, Malachite, Leo, Arslan, Ren, and Nora, didn't do too much this volume. When Malachite, Ren, and Nora, their stories aren't over. Neither is Arslan's. Arslan is more or less establishing the reason why we had that scene with the other half of Season and Arslan, was to establish that there are students present at the school, but they're being worked to death. They're being sent out on these missions that they're not ready for. They're doing these things that they're not prepared to do. Yeah. Hey, don't worry, I cut it down very simply. It's just, it's very much just like, why these characters are wasted. As for Lionheart, he didn't need to do too much. He was basically there to serve as an impediment for both the heroes and the villains, because he's trying to play both sides, and so he has to stall both sides in order to maintain his cover against the heroes. He's this guy that's very much like cowardly minded, and that's really the heart of his character. He's a coward, and he knows it, and he's living with that. I kind of see a little bit of this regret, this self-loathing he has for the actions that he's done, for the things that he's done. And so that's what I wanted to convey with him, is that he's more interesting when you can just consider him as just a character and what he's done in order to get by. His actions now are literally just the consequences of all of his actions prior. So yeah, that's that. Meanwhile, Malachite, Arslan, Ren, and Nora, they still have more to come. I have more planned for them. It varies how much for all of them. Ren and Nora are obviously going to get the bulk some of the development, but we'll see when we get there. For this volume, they're all kind of taken, like, we're introducing Malachite, we're reintroducing Arslan, we're letting Ren and Nora kind of take some off time. They had little moments in here, but nothing super crazy. They're just chilling. They're just chilling for now. Don't worry, we'll get to them. Also, I am lights blowing me out over there. What does Cali becoming captain add to the story? I'm not against it, I'm just confused what the point is. So, for those that didn't follow along, that sounded really condescending, my apologies. Actually, hold this question. I have a super chat from the anime guy. Why hasn't Osbin put Salem in the cage, take his powers back from the Maidens, and make himself the key to the relics in Salem's cage to avoid needless... I would assume needless problems. Needless death. Because you have to get Salem in the cage, and I don't know if he can take the powers back. I don't think he can. Once they're given, they're not returnable. And also, that puts the risk of him getting captured and used in some way, or having his abilities stolen, because we can see that the abilities can be stolen. I feel like that's going to be a very big issue with his plans. What is Cali becoming the captain to add to the story? I'm not against it. Okay, so following along, with the death of Saber last volume, there was a power vacuum for the leadership of the guard, and the captain of the guard is put in place by a council vote or by an executive order from the chieftain. I'm actually going to turn down this volume a little bit. Okay, there we go. So what this effectively was that the council was debating whether or not who to put on the council, and they were leaning towards a White Fang sympathizer that would have buried everything involving the White Fang. So Gira putting Cali on the up as captain, even if she ultimately gets overruled, allows them time to actually investigate, figure out what the White Fang was doing, and try to fix the problem. And like the idea of giving her this backstory was something that was actually floated this volume. So it was a pseudo retcon, but it was one that we left the door open to because we didn't really go into Callie's backstory. We didn't elaborate on it other than she's the mother of Blake. So we found this niche for her that makes her way more compelling as a character. Instead of just being cat MILF, she is now cop cat MILF, and it's awesome. Yep. What was the question here? Don't quite get Raven. All right. So a lot of people didn't quite understand Raven, and that's kind of fine because Raven doesn't fully understand herself. She's a very impulsive person. She acts calm and composed and cool and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, she's very prone to actually losing control of her life. She's also incredibly selfish, and she doesn't quite want to acknowledge that. She makes a lot of plays about, oh, the good of the tribe, the good of the tribe, the good of the tribe. But Crow points out it's always about her. It's never about the tribe. It's about Raven. So Raven is selfish, and yet she still has soft spots for people. She's a little softer on Shiloh, but she genuinely loves her daughter. She's in this place where she's torn between two loves. Her daughter and herself. And once her daughter is ripped from her because of her devotion to herself, it breaks her. At the end, we see Raven at quite possibly her lowest point, especially after the tribe abandons her and completely invalidates her justification for her selfish actions. And don't get me wrong, buried in those statements, they weren't lies. She did care about the tribe. It's just that a lot of it was to cover up subconsciously her selfish nature. She is this very complicated yet simple character. She will do what is best for her and then look for the justification. And then the exception occurs that she has a daughter that she raised herself and cares about deeply. And now she's torn. I gotta head out. I did want to know how to get involved in the artist group for your project. I'll rewatch the VOD later. Take care. Yeah, Hime, excellent question. If you want to join, there will be auditions once Volume 9, probably once Volume 9 ends. I might do it a little bit earlier than that. But keep watching the channel. I usually have an announcement video for auditions. But we love more submissions. Even though I am going kind of insane, we have 50 people, more than 50 people in that server now, and it's crazy to manage. But I do it because I love everyone. It's great. Does Ruby not have any reaction to learning about Vernal, her or basically her step half sister? I mean, they're not really sisters by blood in any way like Yang is, and the problem there is like we didn't have time. There were actually a couple of scenes in this volume that we had to cut because we just didn't have time to show them. And there are things that we're hoping to kind of get in Volume 6. That were ideas that fell through. But Ruby reacting to it, it's not... I don't think it's that super important of a scene. Learning that Yang has a sister beyond her might be the more interesting response. It's not about Vernal so much as Yang now having a second sister. And I think she would be excited were it not for the circumstances. But this was a scene that we just didn't feel like needed following up on. Because Ruby doesn't have a personal connection to Vernal. Not really. It's mostly about Yang. And her concerns about Yang are far more focused on the whole, hey, you lost an arm and you fell into a deep depression thing. So, it is a light oversight. I can give you that, but I don't think it's a damning oversight. How would Yang's arm work with Aura? Aura can actually... if I'm trying to remember my own lore, it has been a while since I've watched my own lore video. But if I remember correctly from the original canon, Aura interacts with inanimate objects like weapons all the time. They actually are used in tandem. And so I'm actually of the opinion, especially once it becomes a part of you, that a weapon is an extension of you when you're using it, and thus your aura follows along in suit. So your aura would protect your weapon while it's in your hands, and thus it would protect her arm while it's in her hands. And now keep in mind, aura is not the absolute force field that it is in the show that can get taken out when no one's looking, because that's consistent. No, aura here is just damage reduction. So damage still goes through, people still get muddied, bloodied, and scarred, but it's reduced. So you can take a bullet to the face. You can take several bullets to the face before your aura goes out, depending how strong it is. Let's see. Most of this has already been covered. Thank you for the question, though, Petra. The exception is the very last question, which is... also, for the name calling, the fusion between Ozma and Roman is Omen. And I disagree. It is not. The combination of Roman and Ozpin is Osman. That's the canon Sketchy Huntsman explanation for it. And I don't know if I want to spoil why. If anyone can guess it, I'll tell you this. It's an illusion. An illusion. I hate that word. So if anyone can guess the illusion that wasn't involved in the conversation involving it, I'm watching you, Sketchy Huntsman. If you can guess that, well, I'll be impressed. Okay, let's see. What was V4's foreshadowing? Yangry towards Raven or just curious? Okay. So, the first question here is, what was the foreshadowing that I teased in Volume 4? Now, there are two different directions to take with this. It was either talking about the boot, which was hinting at Raven and the tribe being responsible for the destruction of Ren's village, which they are. And the second one is there was foreshadowing that I hinted at and I never addressed. The thing that I was hinting at is all of the things that Lionheart was doing to prevent the students from getting to Mistral. He was actively impeding their progress over time through different orders and different commands, and that's what they figured out in the episode where they meet Lucero. So that's that. And you know, since I don't really need this, I can just Osmosis Jones Rosman is a reference to Rosman. Hey, we got one. All right, you've got it. AA1E2R3 got it. Osmandius is a reference to Osmandius. Beautiful poem. Thanks to Aiden Blitz for showing that. Very thematic. He was the one that had that idea, and it stuck. It really rings true. Get that. Hopefully I can hear that from here. Okay. What's fixing does Volume 6 need, chat? The major ones. That's a good question. What does Volume 6 need to fix? I don't know. I haven't looked at it in years. I need to. We have some crazy ideas for Volume 6. I don't know how we're going to work them all in. There's a lot we want to do. So let's see. The second one is the Yang's initial discussion about Raven in Volume 2 and 3 and 4, mostly based on curiosity and sadness rather than anger. I looked at it as usually anger and remission. When you want to know something about someone, and especially after, like, you watch that scene between Yang and Blake, and she's crushing her own, she's like crushing chalk, I think, or she's like just curling her fingers. She's angry. It was Sino? Oh, damn it. I'm sorry, Sino. Oh, god damn it. We always mix those two up. Unless you're fucking with me. Unless you're fucking with me and it was actually Aiden and you're just trying to fuck me up, Jay. Oh. You know what? I blame Sino. That's an in-joke, everyone. Don't think I'm actually blaming Sino. But yes, Yang was angry towards Raven. She was angry. She was curious. She was sad. She didn't understand why her mother left. And the more she understood it, the more it pissed her off. Will Roman modify Ozpin's cane to have a gun? I don't know. But yeah, that's Yang has very complicated, conflicted emotions in regards to Raven. So that usually works out. Missing character shorts. I kept the Ruby character short despite it arguably being less relevant. You expanded it to have Junior being there. It was not less relevant. The character short utilized in episode 1 of Volume 4. It was episode 2 of Volume 4. I'm trying to remember which it was. I think it was episode 1. Was used to basically establish that the team wasn't going to have an easy time getting to Mistral. They were going to have constant issues in the way, like the bearing goals that were sent at the request of Lionheart. Lionheart's like, well, these kids are trying to get here, and they know things. Hey, Salem? Send some Barangals or something. Go attack this place. And so that's why the Barangals went out to attack. That's why they were acting strange in consideration to the thing. Again, going back to Lionheart when he learned about things about them, he always kept putting roadblocks in the way to make sure people couldn't get to Mistral. And by part of it, it also helped disrupt Mistral and get him greater power. It broke the whole train. Yeah, that was one of my favorite shots of the volume. Black hole. Black hole sun, won't you come? But the missing character shorts for this volume, they didn't really do much for any of these characters. Yang's short was about risking her life to protect Ruby from a monster early in her training. I think having some part of the flashback here could have made Yang's anguish over Renal's death even more impactful. It's possible, but I mean, we've already seen Yang's personality up to this point. We've already seen what she's willing to do. We know where she's coming from and what she can do. So it's like it just feels like it's redundant. Weiss training with Winter back in Atlas could have contrasted and helped her further drive home how going native and bandit tribe appeared to her, how she appealed to her. Again, these are all kind of redundant ideas. We already got enough from prior establishment to work on that. And again, Blake's short was just an Ilya short. It was a stealth Ilya short to give us Ilya's backstory, which we already covered in Volume 4, so I didn't feel a need to add any of that stuff. They're called character shorts because they're short on character. Thank you, Floof. So yeah, that was my justification for that. Good question. Okay, so this is from you, Abe. This is part of the post you said not to comment on, but I wanted to respond to this where you're like, you should aim for future seasons to be 120. That way, if you go over, it'll at least be under 140 like the first 3 seasons. The videos will be as long as they need to be. I've added details in and plot points and jokes where I felt they were necessary. I went through the review for it. I understand you're trying to suggest this, but longer content does not mean badder content. There is in fact a market for people to watch long form content, and it's part of the reason why I describe things in as much detail as I do, because I know that people don't always watch the screen when they're doing this. As much as I want them to see all the beautiful art that's thrown this way, as much as I want them to see that, I recognize that some people just, maybe they're listening to it in the car, or they're on the way to work, or they're listening to it on the job, and they have to watch something else, but they're just listening to it in the background. People need that, and long form content is great for that. An hour-long podcast is entirely entertaining. A long form story is entertaining. And I don't know why this is so arbitrary. 1 hour 20, 1 hour 40. I don't understand why you chose these arbitrary times. And for the record, this is the most successful volume I have had. This is the most watched volume total. So whatever your advice here is, it doesn't stack up. You also gave a suggestion, I remember very distinctly, to not have so many update videos. We get that you're working on it. Really? Have you watched any of the streams that I did during this year where people were asking, where's Volume 5? Where's Volume 5? Where's Volume 5? People kept asking that, and I did update videos, and it managed to cool people on that. But even now, I'm getting asked constantly, when are you going to do Volume 6? When's Volume 6? When's Volume 6? It's like, I get badgered constantly when things are, and my update videos served alternate purposes. I did one to just show off the length of the script, because I thought that was funny, but that one, I believe, also showed off my new Kelpie avatar. So I had fun with that. But every other update, I believe, was like an announcement involving the sketchy huntsman. So it's... Cool it, man. Let me do the YouTube. I have been working at it for like 6-7 years now. All right? I have some idea what I'm doing. Not to go off on you, you have some really good questions, but like this one kind of picked at a sore spot, and it's like you're telling me how to do my job. I get that's sort of what I'm doing with Rooster Teeth, but at the same time, I'm not making them married to it while you're like, oh, it needs to be this. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't need to be this. I'm just saying it could be this with my work. You're saying it needs to be this, and I take a little more offense to that. All right, so that out of the way, and don't worry, Abe, we'll be getting to more your more actual content-related questions soon enough. Episodes. So this is a question. Is this the finale? I thought it was 24 episode rewrites. No, we've been 22 since Volume 4. I plan to keep on going 22 into Volume 6. And I might reduce it or increase it, or maybe stay the same with Volume 7. My goal is that every three-year arc, every 3-year arc will have a consistent time frame on the lengths or the number of episodes. I want them all to be kind of consistent in that way. All right, so secondly, would you object to would you or yours object to reaction videos of this? I've never thought of giving a reaction. So long as it's properly transformative and insightful, I have no problem with it. It falls under fair use. Go right ahead. I've tried to improve my own reaction videos over time because I wasn't happy with my format, where there's a lot of dead air and a lot of just playing the video where there wasn't a lot of commentary going on. And while that still is transformative the way we have it with our face setups and obscuring of the screen, I felt like I could improve that. So with my arcane reactions, I've been working on improving my reaction format. So if you want an idea for how to format those kinds of reactions, please look at the arcane stream. I would appreciate formats like this or like that, so that people will come here naturally and want to see it and react themselves to the wonderful art in real time. Wonderful art that will eventually be put up on the Sketchy Huntsman Twitter, which I do recommend you go follow, at Sketchy Huntsman. For instance, all of Fixing RWBY Volume 4 has less views than the entire first episode of Fixing Volume 5. I think so, yeah. It's ridiculous. This volume just blew up. Okay, so Vance Miller asks, what is the geopolitical scene looking like at this time? And the geopolitical scene is kind of a mess. Vale is obviously off the global stage right now in terms of communication. They have to do everything by snail mail, and it's a slow-going process. They're trying to get communications up, but it's slow going. Probably the most stable at this time is Vacuo and Atlas, who haven't really been hit by anything yet. Meanwhile, Mistral has just gone through some pretty big upheaval. Haven is effectively taken off the market. Haven is effectively gone. There's very few teachers left. The student body has been demoralized at best, if not also heavily depopulated, let's say. So you get a lot of this. Menagerie itself is still pretty stable, but depending how we revisit that, it might not be when we get back to it. Cali and Gera's actions will have consequences. I do intend to have some kind of consequence for that. How that's going to actually play out, I don't know yet. But we'll get to it. And secondly, it should be easier. Who is your favorite character to write? Just curious. It's probably predictable, but Roman. Roman was really fun to write. He's actually really dangerous to write, because he chews the scene. He absorbs scenes when he's on screen. So you have to be very careful with him, and I don't know if I even succeeded necessarily. I think I probably failed in a couple of parts with him. But he is he is so much fun to write because he is just like, he is constantly taking the piss out of everyone for everything, including himself. Like, that's what's great about him. He's not afraid to take shots at himself about all this stuff. So he's probably my favorite to write, but he's also really hard because you want to keep going with him, and you're like, no, gotta peel that back. But also, alternatively to him, Vernal was also really fun to write. I'm trying to think. Other characters that were fun to write. I liked writing Ilya. Ilya has this very tragic story to her, and I like where we kind of let it, where she has basically resolved. He's basically asking how the White Fang plan would have worked. Okay, so the White Fang plan on the surface would have worked. If the plan had worked, they would have cut off communication from the main. They would cut off communications within the city or around Mistral by destroying the CCT tower. They would have their own backup CCT tower, and that was what the special scrolls were for. They connected only to that CCT tower. All other scrolls would not connect to it. So basically, the White Fang would have all these special scrolls that would allow them to basically coordinate, while everyone else would be scrambling on local comms and trying to get some kind of organization going, but having no ability to centralize a movement against the White Fang. So the White Fang could break out in smaller groups and usurp positions of power. But things that were shot down in quick succession was their manpower and military might, like their air power, were cut drastically by Blake and Son's raid. They were met there. Their surprise attack completely lost its bite. They couldn't destroy the CCT tower in time. Adam didn't even know at the time that he could do it. He was just so angry he wanted to cut something, and he had charged up so much power that he actually cut through the entire tower. Like, it's this moment of just rage boiling over and just channeling that into attack. So that part of the plan came off, but he didn't have the manpower nor the organization left, nor the element of surprise left to actually execute on anything else. That's why it failed. Now, if it had succeeded, the White Fang would have actually succeeded to some degree. They would have gotten control of Mistral. However, because their forces were stretched so thin, it would only take a month at most for Atlas to realize, hey, we haven't heard from Mistral in a while. Let's go down there. Oh, hey, there was a coup. Let's liberate Mistral, and they'll be indebted to us. And basically, Atlas would just take over Mistral. And from there, it would be probably a spiral of political tensions as everyone's like, hey, Atlas, can you give Mistral back? And they're like, nah, no. Mistral's fine. You don't need Mistral. It's my Mistral. It's mine. So, yeah, that would have spiraled, as Cali said, into a full-on war. The power vacuum that would have been created by the White Fang would have been in the long term disastrous, and that's what Adam wasn't seeing, and that's why Adam needed to be stopped. His plan could have worked considering the circumstances, but he was only thinking so far as getting Mistral and not anywhere else, because he didn't consider that in the time it would take to build up his forces further, there would be the power vacuum that needed to be there would be the power vacuum to fill. I hope that answers your question. Make sure these things, any lingering fallout once we eventually leave. All right, so I noticed that the Nora and Adam scene, you used the instrumental for Devil Trigger and beginning of Bury the Light. I assume the last one was intentional, considering the two similar fighting style. I am the storm that is approaching. Yes, that was. It worked. I did it mostly because I thought it was funny. I liked the similar styles, and
I chose Devil Trigger for Nora just because like she is the berserker of their group, even more so than Yang to some degree. So I had fun. Yeah, I had fun with it. Who's asking what? Story sounds more interesting. Hey, hire RT this man. Yeah, I'm not a yes man. It's very interesting because I was actually watching. There's an interview with Martin O'Donnell, Late Night Gaming, and a bunch of other YouTubers. And Martin O'Donnell, for anyone that doesn't know, is the original composer of the Halo games up through Reach, with the exception of Halo Wars. I'm not sure if Halo Wars was before or after Reach. I think it was before Reach, but I'm not sure. It's been a while. And I was watching a conversation with him, and he was talking about all these things that he pushed hard for because they were integral to the game. They were integral, and they went against things like, why would we add this when it's just going to cost us money and not give us short-term wealth gain? And he was like, no, you build up the fan base, you give them these nice things, and they will be indebted to you, and they will keep coming back for future projects because they are assured of the quality. He's very much of that mindset of, and he said it paid dividends because people kept coming back for ODST and Reach, and Halo 4, even though it wasn't being made by Bungie. But little things, big things to little things. He pushed for foliage having certain levels of interactivity, having sound bites when you walked through it, very cool stuff to listen to, and on top of that, he also pushed, hey, we gotta have Forge, we gotta have theater mode, we have to ship with these things in the game because people will love it. People will adore this, and it will basically further push the medium forward. And that's the kind of person that I kind of want to be. I'm not a yes man. Or if I am a yes man, I'm the yes man that goes, wait, let's compromise. Let's find something. And he had the compromise too. Like, there were compromises he had to make. So it was very inspiring listening to this guy who's a personal hero of mine. I love Martin O'Donnell. He's excellent composer. Again, I recommend all the Halo albums except Halo 5. Even Halo 4 and Infinite. I really like Halo 4s. I really like Halo Infinites. I can do a whole stream on my opinions on the Halo soundtracks. And yeah, Cali and the like don't know that the Ironwood is going crazy. They just understand politics. When there's a power vacuum, people want to fill it. Just how many times have you had to practice the second seer we've seen all series? Not at all. It rolls right off my tongue. There are other lines that you would think would be very easy to say. Took me dozens of tries to get right. This one, I got probably first or second try. Not a problem for me. So, I found that amusing, being asked that. I don't remember ever struggling with that line. So this was basically asking, why keep Roman's death the same in Volume 3? Well, this is a multi-pronged answer. One, I didn't know I was going to bring Roman back. This was basically me sitting till the end of development of, or sitting to the end of Volume 7 to confirm that they're not doing anything original or unique with Oscar. What music is playing right now? Currently we are playing Halo Infinite's Hunter's Dance, which I believe is the credit song for Halo Infinite. So why did I keep Roman's death the same? I didn't know I was going to bring him back until I started development of Volume 4. And that was by the time Volume 7 had come to an end, if I remember correctly. Yeah, we're in Volume 8 and Volume... Okay, yeah. So Volume 7 came to an end. And I confirmed they weren't doing anything interesting at all with Oscar. If they had done something interesting with Oscar, I would have tried to fix Oscar. I would have. But they gave us 4 volumes of a nothing character. And that was when I made the executive decision, alright, it's obvious that by this point, Oscar has nothing to work with. even if they give him something, and they did give him a little something in Volume 8, they gave him a smooch of information, just a scooch of personality. The fact that they did that so late, 5 volumes in, we're finally getting a personality for Oscar, and it's a tiny one at that. It's not worth the effort. Why bother with that? Especially because I can get that same amount of personality out of Roman. Hell, I've gotten close to it. Actually, screw it. I've already done it. I've already done it at the end of Volume 5 when he's talking about playing hero with his childhood friend. Like, that is the amount of character dynamic that Oscar had that wasn't unique to, oh, my brain is being absorbed by the crazy old wizard man. Literally, Oscar is just Ozpin's meat suit. Meanwhile, Roman is his own independent character that will have similar fears to Oscar, similar concerns to Oscar, and I can't wait to get to those. But at the same time, he actually has a personality on top of that we care about. I really don't want to include Oscar, but there have been some ideas floating around how I might be able to include him in future volumes to some degree. It wouldn't be a major part. It would be a glorified cameo, but there are things floating around that I'm playing with. Don't. I have said before that I don't want to include Oscar. I might, a little bit. I might, just as a little nod and reference. Even though I don't feel it would be really diegetic to things, but yeah. Okay, Observer. All right, so comments from Observer. He has some very wonderful likes and neutral things. He hates that it's cut off from the bottom. I wish I could. Oh, can I? I can't. Damn it. All right. So the first thing that he comments on, I'm sorry it's cut off. I hate this formatting. Just because all YouTube comments are different format. I wish you could make them uniform format so I could have a uniform screen here. Yang seems to forgive Blake too fast again. This is not flat out forgiveness, and it's something that Coffee actually suggested that I comment on, and I was too tired from all the work to actually go back and re-record that section. I was exhausted by the end of this volume. But she recommended when she was doing the scene that that I would clarify that this isn't Yang and Blake completely forgiving each other, or this isn't Yang completely forgiving Blake. This is Yang acknowledging, look, you fucked up, you hurt me, I'm willing to I want to do clean slate, I want to give you a second chance because you did eventually come back and you apologized, you are here trying to make amends. I recognize that. I want to give you the chance. So I guess it is actually forgiveness, because I forgot. Most important thing about forgiveness is it's not for the other person. It is for yourself. Forgiveness is letting go of resentment and anger. It is a tool that you use to save your soul effectively. Forgiveness is more for the person forgiving than it is for the person that you are, that is more for the person doing the forgiving than the person that you are forgiving. So she, in a sense, does forgive Blake, but it's not like she's trying. They're basically trying to get back to a 0 point with their relationship. And there's still going to be tension. There's still things that are kind of left unresolved there. They're just trying. They're two characters that after all this time, they're nervous, they're anxious, but they're trying. They're really trying to get back to a better point. And that's not going to always be the easiest thing to do. And you'll see that next volume, I hope. It's still a very long road for these two. And then Team Ruby did nothing to stop Raven from running from her actions at Haven. I mean, to be fair, she could have left at any time. If she tried to run, like, in the middle of a fight, she was going to run. They knew that they couldn't catch her. Catching Raven is one of the biggest, like, difficulties in this series. There's a reason why Yang never managed to track her down. She could teleport. Teleporting is really freaking powerful. So that's it's more like they kind of like acknowledge that right now they neither team could really do anything against each other, and Raven could have run with the relic, but at the same point she's just like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And there is a later one about burying the relic. We'll get to that, because it's actually kind of it's a genuine flaw that I'm willing to acknowledge. Genuine flaw. It's open for interpretation, but it's you can see it as a flaw. I hope that answers that question. I'll say I like the idea of Hazel's sibling being Osmond's predecessor. But it kind of throws off the fairy tale inspiration of Hansel and Gretel. Well, it does and doesn't. Gretel is a diminutive version of Marguerite, or Margaret. And I did my best to find male versions of Margaret, and that what I came up with was basically Magnus. Which, considering how a lot of fairy tale inspiration in the show is sort of twisted and tortured. Ask Twilight Guardian. She hates the show because of how it doesn't utilize its fairy tale tropes. I didn't feel it was too big of a deal, especially because it doesn't really come up to things. Hansel and Gretel. But I did intend to keep that intact. Magnus is supposed to be a male version of Marguerite, or Margaret, and which is itself the root of Gretel. So, and for the record, Hazel ain't exactly a name that's, like, it's similar to Hansel, but it ain't Hansel. So, I mean, but yes, Magnus became Ozpin. People were asking how old that makes Hazel. It's less that Ozpin was old. I mean, he looked older. He had, like, premature wear. But one thing I do want to explore is your hair starts to go white when you're possessed by Ozpin. So, that's a thing. Oh, why does Raven still have the air of superiority, even though she's basically lost everything? And it's because that's just how Raven operates. That's her personality. She always considers herself the best, even when she's at her worst. Hansel? 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 How long do these normally go for? They can go for a couple hours, 2-3 hours. I'm trying to get. We're actually making pretty good time through these questions. We're on 21 of 37, though a few of those are going to be multi-part questions. So a cheap swap? Yeah, but that's really my justification for that. Is that she always has the air of superiority. She's just a very proud person, and she can't stand being wrong. And that's why she snaps at Yang. You know, what was I supposed to do? Like, she was cornered, and she hated it. I'd like to know what made you choose to keep the Raven in the Spring Maiden twist, because that's how the show played it. The show wanted. There are some scenes in the show where you could tell they really wanted it. They really wanted the Raven twist to land. That's the only reason Vernal was created in the first place. is they wanted some kind of red herring because they knew people would complain. Oh, Raven's the Spring Maiden. Who would have guessed? And that's one reason I'm like, well, you guys didn't do any of the fucking legwork to make that look right, to make that work. So I decided I'm going to do the legwork. I'm going to make Vernal this likable, lovable character. This fun character that people want to see succeed. This person that could very well be the Spring Maiden and is feigning being the Spring Maiden to protect her mother because she's a teenager and doesn't understand the dire consequences of that action. And is just obstinate to do it. So it's that's why I decided to keep it. It's this big point they really wanted to play off and just never did. It's like most of RWBY. There's good ideas and then they just don't do them right. Not a fan of how the Roman Neo reunion was portrayed in the remake. A lot of people were like, "Oh, he should have been crying and breaking down." It's like that's not how Roman rolls. That's not how Roman rolls. He's just his relief. He masks with comedy. He's a goof. Still haven't forgiven me for Vernal? Yeah, cry more. It feeds me. Oh yeah, that one good thing they filled upwards on. Also, how dare you not have Weiss and Vernal not have an accidental almost kiss moment? I was so tempted to. The accidental shipping of Weiss and Vernal. Hey Moopa, if you're still here, or someone from the Sketchy Huntsman, what did we ultimately land on for their ship name? Yeah, White Lilies. I think it was White Lilies that we ultimately landed on. Or Snow Lily? I'm not entirely sure. And yeah, Vernal is actually older than RWBY by a year. It actually, it goes 18, 17, 16 for the three sisters. Sank White Lily for White Rose. I didn't even... That's the thing that sucks. I can't even do White Rose because the show isn't doing White Rose. I'm kind of married to Bumblebee right now, and I'm just like... I would really rather do White Rose. Snow Lilies? Snow Lilies, okay. Okay, it's been a while since I've checked all that. I have a lot rattling around in my head, and it's really hard to get some of it sometimes. And they have more of an overly happy reunion. This was in World, and because of depression, out of World months. Yeah, it was months, and they thought each other were dead. Like, Roman and Neo's reunion were fine, I thought. They were... I mean, I honestly, I don't see the complaint. It's like they acted in character. They have this, like... And to be fair, Neo was just like, you've been alive this whole time? How dare you? How dare you and not find me? Forgot when was the last time the show hinted at White Rose. When was the last time? The closest maybe you can get is Volume 6 where they're tag teaming on the train, but... Well, and the scene on the Wasp. Brain is not figuring the name for them. The Lancer. But other than that, yeah. It's been a while. Oh, Volume 7 when Weiss falls asleep on Ruby's shoulder, and like these aren't even these are the crumb of crumbs in terms of shipping material. These are just friends being good friends. It's you expect them to be this close at this point. I expect something similar to happen with all of them. Although seeing things between Weiss and Blake might be interesting. God knows they need some interaction that's nice. Snow Lily's kiss art exists? Yeah, check the Sketchy Huntsman Twitter for Snow Lily's art. It's there. It's there. That's one of the best parts about this volume is that there's a lot of art that wasn't in the volume because it was non-canon. The artist just decided, hey, I want to do this thing. So they did that thing, and it was awesome. Okay. Adam complexity. I'm still on this version of Adam. League's better than the show, but that's not saying much, is it? I like how we can see him deteriorate, and I can see how he devolved into obsessing over Blake, but I'm still not sure how I'd feel about the potential route, especially if he ended up murdering all the White Fang himself. And I'm a sucker for villains being at least somewhat right, and I personally think that a lot more interesting if Adam actually had a point about racism being so extremely bad in Remnant that it necessitates the White Fang. The thing is, a lot of the issues with racism in Remnant are not policy-based. There are a lot of personal, like, there are policies that, don't get me wrong, there are, like, especially in Atlas, we're gonna have to flesh out exactly how racist policies in Atlas work. There's more so in Mistral. We do see that there are companies or independent establishments that forbid faunists from joining, but there's nothing in the political sphere that ban faunists. Racism still exists, don't get me wrong, but it's much more of a social ill than it is a governmental or political ill, which when you're running a political or governmental body is like the White Fang was, kind of defeats the purpose. Your goal is to alleviate issues on the political front, on the governmental front. And a lot of those have been solved just about everywhere except Atlas. And so what you're dealing with afterwards is the lingering racist sentiment of the people of the setting. You're dealing with a social element. And being a terrorist group kind of does more harm to that than good in many ways. You end up stirring up more racial animosity by being a terrorist group than you do by being a more neutral political group, a less extreme political group, I should say. So Adam isn't wrong, but his methods are. With the exception of possibly Atlas, but even Atlas is on, like, the cusp of, like, we'll get to that, I think. I think they're more on the cusp of, like, kind of fixing their laws in terms of racial segregation. But even then, that just begins the slow process of you have to de-racialize the society itself. Why is it that they always smile like these frowny faces? People are making faces in here. I don't know why. Yeah. And the thing is, this is a very complicated subject because it's scratching upon our real world issues. Like, I don't deny that. There were some people that wanted to say that I was racist because there are racial issues in this world. There's tons of them. But a lot of handling them in a medium where you have control over the world makes it very sketchy. I'd rather not linger on this, honestly, because I feel like anything I say, people are going to try and use to slander me. So, but the fact of the matter is, it's a very complicated situation. Adam is right in many respects. He's wrong in many respects. And that's what I think makes him a good villain. He's a man that gets very tunnel visioned in what he thinks is right, and it ends up costing everyone as a consequence. Is Adam going to kill Jock Schnee in Fixing RWBY? No. I'll just flat out say no. We are sticking relatively close to canon in regards to Jacques. We're sticking close to canon in some ways, and not in others for everyone involved. So, can't wait for you and your friends to react to Volume 9. Quick question: have you ever thought about doing a RWBY meme review? Never have, actually. That's not a bad idea. I like meme reviews. They're fun. I might do that. That'd be fun to do with a Sketchy Huntsman, maybe, or with friends, maybe Fat Man. That'd be a good stream to ask him why he didn't like Volume 5. So this was already addressed. Who was responsible for Kuro Yuri? I teased at it, but it was in fact Raven. That was Raven's boot that came down. You get little hints of that because Vernal was using Li Ren's bow. Hanzo's bow. Fun fact, Vernal may have actually been present during the raid of Kuroyuri. So it may be, Vernal could have been present during that raid. She might have been like in the back helping like give out water to the raiders or something like that. Or she could have just been along with her mom. I don't think they would have brought her along, but she could have been along. So that's just a fun little fact that Ryan and Nora will never learn about. They might learn about Raven destroying their village, though. And that could have some spicy results in the future. I wanted to actually address it in this volume. I wanted to actually have a conflict between Ren and Nora and Raven. But time and structuring, it didn't work out. I hope in the future I can bring it up, but unfortunately I couldn't do it this volume. Good question. Why didn't Raven bury the relic? I think this is a genuinely good question. I think it's more like leaning on her selfishness. She's lost everything. Lost her daughter, lost her tribe. She doesn't have any family. She doesn't have any friends. The only thing she has is to run away. And that's all she can. She wants to be done with it. She's sick of it. It's ruined her life. It's ruined everything about her life. She doesn't want it. So she could bury the relic, but then they'd be tracking her down, trying to find the damn thing. So instead she's just like, you know what? Screw it. Not my problem. They don't need my maiden powers anymore. They don't really need any of that. I'm just going to go run and hide just in case they want to find it. You can take the relic. I don't need any extra reason for them to chase me. Take it. I don't care anymore. I'm out. That's Raven's response. That's Raven's mentality at that point. She just wants to be done with it. She wants to wash her hands and leave. And she's always wanted to do that. She just never could. If you ever get Nora backstory, it'd be cool to have Lily somewhere in the background. If only we had planned really ahead in volume 4 and had Lily there. That'd be fun. But I wouldn't tie them that closely. That'd be the first time they ever come anywhere near each other. And they never interact either. Not just in terms of setting, but the details. You kept both the cheap Weissmite die scene while Lily's death. The Weissmite die scene, the reason I kept that is it was another thing they wanted to try and pull off. And I wanted it to be more... It was more about Cinder being ruthless than anything else. I didn't want people to think that Weiss would actually die. The characters thought that Weiss would actually die. They were feeling that. But the way I framed it... I never intended for people to think that Weiss might die. So like there were reasons I kept different things in, but I didn't want them to be and while Lily Seth I didn't want them to be the same necessarily. They all had different purposes for being left in. And while Lily's death certainly wasn't incidental, it was originally it didn't feel earned. Pyrrha was a major character, and her death was the culmination of her arc. So, in contrast, Vernal's death was just destroyed all possibilities for development in a very incomplete character. She didn't die because she chose to put her trust in her circumstances. And she didn't die as a result. She died because she trusted her mother. Because she sided with her mother. That was her ultimate fatal flaw. She's a mama's girl. That was her flaw. She couldn't detach herself from everything. She couldn't see clearly because she trusted her mom, who was her only guiding point for the majority of her life. She was only just exposed to the outside world in a way that was like educational through Weiss and Yang and Neo to some lesser extent. So it was that was her flaw, and she was growing into her character arc, and it was cut off, and that's part of the tragedy. She's tragic because she could have been more. I wanted you to feel as though Vernal could have carried on through the series. That was the biggest design choice that we made in terms of her writing. We wanted to feel like if she survived through this, she could join the team. She could become a member. Hell, it'd be really cool. She could join Team Juniper. Like, that would be an interesting dynamic. there's a dynamic there that we could have explored, and we wanted you to feel it could have been explored, and we wanted you to feel robbed of it. And that was the aim that I took with it, and I felt quite satisfied with how it pulled off. And this goes to how a lot of direction is done in this volume. People were kind of like talking about how I should have just, talked less, let the visuals carry things more. And in some places I listened, in particular, Saria's art involving Yang having a breakdown. That was left mostly instrumental because it really was that powerful. And I actually fought against that. I fought against that because I had dialogue that I had read out that I was very intent on getting in there. But not dialogue, but like description. And I was ultimately kind of shouted down by a lot of the sketchy huntsmen that argued with it. And I think it was the right choice overall. I think they were right. I was being obstinate because I had personal connection to it. But I left a lot of description in because, again, it's for viewers that can't see. That's why there's a lot of bloat in this volume, as people claim. Abe. It's just like there's where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought. But yeah. So also maybe have the main battleground be somewhere other than the random hall. So much time was spent on the setting of Mistral, and there were so many dynamic places where we could have had the battle. We wanted actually more of a dynamic battle through the whole of Mistral. But the way things structured and the way everything focused around the vault, we couldn't make that work. I tried. But the position of the vault in the school relegated everything to the location of the school, and everyone walking into the school, like, it all spiraled naturally. I see kind of the problem they ended up having. They could have fixed it. I couldn't fix it. I tried. I tried. And I did my best to actually make it feel much more dynamic by actually exploring the school as a total. You got to see more of Haven than you ever did in the actual show. You got to see administrative offices, briefly, but you got to see them. You got to see classrooms. You got to see dorm rooms. You got to see different locations on the campus that flesh out the campus as a whole. Yeah, my train of thought crashed, just like Volume 6. But yes, I hope that answers that question. I'm going to flip to the next question, which is Astrostar. I need to get a drink. So everyone, chill back, relax, listen to the music. I hope you enjoy it. I'll be right back. I hate having to have these boundaries up. The room is such a mess, though, and it's not my fault because my mom stores stuff in the study all the time. I want to hear a comical toilet flush. Yeah, you're out hearing that. I actually hate that kind of joke. Let's see. Team Auburn, undeveloped. Okay. So, some people seem to think that RWBY was largely sidelined this volume by the Roman psycho to become a Roman sidekick while not making much of her own initiative. Yes, people complain about that, but it's more of a mentor figure type thing. It's sort of like characters that aren't fully grown up need to learn from older characters things about the world and themselves and each other. Maybe, just maybe, RWBY is going through a learning process. That's a big thing that people don't appreciate about this volume, is that it's her learning. And believe me, I have plans for RWBY next volume. RWBY's gonna be kind of crazy to write. Yes, water. Everyone, drink water. I'm trying to cut down on my Pepsi intake. Mostly because of the sugar. Will Nora's guilt surrounding the circumstances of Heroes Death be explored in later volumes? It is such an interesting plot point, I would hate to see it dropped. Yes, it will. No doubt about it. Yes, it will. I plan to. Again, Nora and Ren took a backseat this volume because they got so much focus in the prior one. It's sort of like a lot of focus on characters shift through different volumes. That's a lot of where these things, like, you know, where did Team Auburn go? We saw them briefly. They went out on a mission. They were only back briefly. So by the time that all the events really started spiraling out of control, they were long gone. They were off on a mission, like most of the students at Haven. You know, actually, one thing that I just considered, instead of having police get gunned down by Adam's men, I should have probably made it to a couple hunters in training. That might have actually worked really well to establish that they're there. Not anyone we know, but just have some generic hunters to get killed. Or huntsmen in training. I hope the poorly underdeveloped RWBY dynamics from the original show get more developed and growth here now that the team is back together. Like Weiss and Blake, Blake and Ruby, Ruby and Yang. And the reason I mention that is I noticed that although there was a team reunion like the show proper, the spa scene and the plane scene were more focused on Blake and Yang. I hope this doesn't become another scenario where the characters only develop with one other person. No, I do hope to actually kind of spread that out. I do have personal favorites. Again, White Rose and Bumblebee, they are very good pairings, but I do hope to kind of flesh out the other dynamics more. Get Ruby's reaction. One thing I'm kind of curious about writing is Ruby's reaction to Blake running away. Since she has less of an animosity about it. Weiss's take on that kind of stuff. Weiss is going to probably be the most forgiving of Blake. I actually see those two as being the most closely tight-knit in some ways. Like, as terms of friends, like, I feel like they actually kind of come to understand each other a lot more because they have weirdly reflective circumstances. All right, so I hope that addresses that. Blake just finding the villain hideout feels a little forced. I feel like that part could have been handled smoother. Maybe Blake realizes there's a bunch of airships she was chasing seem to have disappeared into the city. She did. The problem is, like, the visual didn't really convey it the best. It conveyed the scene overall really well, but it's one of those things where, like, having specifics kind of help. The way I describe it is that the bullhead was actually on its descent into the city. So, when Blake started basically having to run along rooftops, she knew they were preparing to land. They were preparing to come down. She knew they were in the general vicinity. So that kind of, she was in the vicinity of the place they landed because they were landing, and that caused her to fall. Like that series of events. And also it's just the tallest building around at the time. Like, it's just, there is a level of convenience there. I can give you that. I can definitely give you that. But it's not so convenient that it's unbelievable. And yes, Floof wants to take partial credit for that being a problem due to how he sketched it. I don't really rest all that much blame on him. Again, there is a bit of coincidence there, but all the same, I don't think it's too unbelievable. Did Crow know about Lillian Vernal? And no, I don't believe he did. I think he suspected. I think he suspected that Raven might have had another child, but he didn't know. And I don't think he would have confirmed or denied it. He just doesn't know because he doesn't keep up with Raven. He doesn't try to very much unless he absolutely needs to. Remember, she reaches out to him. He hasn't returned to the tribe at all in years. Toma, sorry it's cut off at the bottom here. I'm not going to readjust it. Also, I'm going to turn on a light. It's getting dark outside. Yay. I know what to be light. Ah, sat down too fast. That's uncomfortable. So, okay, now I know. Neo makes visual illusions, not audio ones. This is something that's kind of lost in it. Roman actually, when Ozpin takes over Roman's body, he actually speaks with Oz's voice. Like, they sound distinct. It is Ozpin's voice coming out of Roman's face. And that's why it's weird. That's why I'm making a point of it when Neo sees it for the first time. She is weirded the fuck out by it. She goes to Yang's side because she's like, oh God. Meanwhile, Roman's just like, oh. Roman and Ozpin, they have distinct voices. So when Neo creates the illusion, Ozpin speaking with his voice is an Ozpin thing, not a Neo thing. It's just Ozpin's plan. So, that makes sense. Again, with lies and deception accusations, you can't keep bringing this up without showing it. Like, Ozpin has, so far, been very open with his allies about what he needs done. Has he know? Has he know? I find that very interesting you think that. There's nothing whatsoever in there to doubt that Ozpin might not be on the up and up. Okay. Alright. You do you. That's fine. I find it very interesting. Wonder if Cinder will try to spin Betrayal. Okay, let me see my actual list here. Let's see, I knew they would let you go as soon as I attacked the princess. You can make the argument that the heroes were too soft-hearted to retaliate properly. I think a quick mention to Emerald before she went down would help show if Cinder's manipulative nature better. Possibly. We'll get some follow-up, I think, on Emerald and Mercury next volume, as long as the rest of the team. So, Cinder, this is the first time we've seen Cinder fight since her last encounter with Ruby, and she seems a little weak. There's a number of factors at play here. One, even though the fight was on even terms, she wasn't preparing for a fight necessarily, except against Raven. And she was hoping that one would be over because she would have all of her teammates at once. Instead, she's on a 2v2 with Ruby and John. And the thing about Ruby is that she's fast. She is faster sometimes than Cinder can think, and Cinder has to rely on reflexes. Cinder doesn't have enough time to consciously activate her magic, and when she does, Ruby can typically outspeed it, because Cinder doesn't think very creatively with her magic. That's another failing that Cinder has. She's not very creative. She's creative with dust, but like she's had a longer time training with that. So, RWBY utilizing her semblance is what gives her the edge. And this is the problem where people want to talk about power scaling, and I have a big issue with power scaling as a concept. I've used it as reference very quickly and for short-term things, but at the same time, I use power scaling in the sense of, can these characters match up to each other? Not, oh, they're so powerful they can just wipe the floor. I think Dragon Ball has really poisoned the well on that, where it's like, oh, this, you just got to keep on getting more and more levels, and then you're just out-level them. That's not how that works. The idea of a character being able to outwit or outskill an opponent is part of power level calculation, and people don't seem to think that. So just because Cinder is a maiden doesn't mean she's automatically more powerful than everyone else. She has more power than everyone else, but whether or not she uses it well is a different story. She's been using it as basically a cudgel. Magic for her is a cudgel, and RWBY is a fine rapier of speed. Ironically, not Weiss. So she can duck and weave in a way that Cinder can't calculate for. You're blaming Dragon Ball fans for something that isn't so? Look, after Super Saiyan, and a lot of people don't want to admit this, after Super Saiyan, a lot of the show became, you gotta get more Super Saiyan. I should know, I watched it. I've watched Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball Z. Not up through Super, mind you, because Super is stupid. Super takes that and runs with it. As I understand it, at least. D-Train asks, will you be trying to limit yourself a bit when it comes to things like budget and keeping realistic to RT going forward? Sorry if this sounds dumb. Yes and no. See, part of the problem with RT is that, like, I've managed to match some of their quality to some extent with volunteers. The problem with Rooster Teeth is not their budget. The problem with Rooster Teeth is their utilization of budget. Yeah. By the end of the Namek saga, power levels become null and void. One of the reasons I fell off of Dragon Ball, it just seemed people were winning fights to win fights. Like, the story just wanted them to win, wanted them to lose. Yes, Floofus is a fantastic volunteer. In fact, there are several times where I've told Floof, hey, stop working. Stop. You are hurting yourself. Stop. And yes, Perry is Floof. That is true. I'm kidding. Looks like Raven deliberately opened a portal to save Crow. This is the only... I don't know what you're referring to. This might be an art question, but she didn't. Because I don't think Crow would have actually... If you're referring to when he fell off the roof and she opened a portal for him, I don't think that's the case to save him, because he would have transformed into a bird and just flown away. I think it was more probably a portal to catch him than anything else. You think RT got bored with it? No, it's their cash cow. It's one of the few things keeping that company on life support. So why they would get bored with it is a really bad thing. Hansel is only using dust crystals when he gets mad at Ozpin. I thought his superhuman strength was due to the crystals in the first place. No. Hazel has the ability to negate pain. When you understand what that means, he can push his body further than most people when exercising. There is a reason he is a huge chunk of a human being. He can exercise without feeling fatigue. Which, hey, can lead to some damage. He does have to monitor himself for damaging himself, but he can push himself further and further to the point that he is muscle. Hazel is a tank of a human being, and he is super strong. He doesn't need the crystals. He can use the crystals, but he doesn't need them. Also combine that with the healing properties of aura, and you could theoretically Wolverine yourself into super strength. That, like, Wolverine has super strength. People don't want to acknowledge that, but he does. He has super strength just because he can build his muscle really quickly. How's the stream going? Going well. Skill as a writer in. Have you ever put your skill as a writer in the D&D community game? I run D&D and I love to see how you navigate the medium. Oh, I love tabletop. I'm actually making my own tabletop system. I haven't. I need to check some copyright stuff. I need to actually look at the system again because there's some changes I want to make to it. Some massive overhauls, honestly. But yeah, I love tabletop systems. I play it regularly. I'm going to a tabletop game tonight to play Pathfinder 2. So yeah, I love that stuff. Actually, I'm pretty sure if you go back through my old videos, you can find old videos of me, Fat Man, and a couple of others playing Starfinder. I was jamming for that. And I wasn't having the greatest time. Starfinder is kind of a weak system, if I'm being honest. I like it, but it needs work. I read another comment that mentioned that Hansel is from Hansel and Gretel. I've already covered the whole Hansel Gretel thing. Not gonna lie, a little disappointing that Ozpin is getting the beatdown by Hansel. You mean Hazel? You keep saying Hansel. It's Hazel. Ozpin seems to be able to hold his own in canon, and this is the first time we've seen him fight. Oz should have enough experience to dodge his hits from the... He's playing with Roman's body, man. Roman's body is not super strong. He is not super good at things. And Hazel's quick. Hazel is actually a pretty quick motherfucker when he's in a fight. The muscles make you faster, too. Sounds like my cat's waking up. He's over there. Nora's line can be reworked. That's not... I'm not going to comment on. I like Nora's line if I need him to go down. More Toma questions. That was the first one was Toma questions? Yeah, oh, these are all Toma questions. So, this is asking mostly about, like, the blasé mention of faunus discrimination, because the faunus discrimination you're going to run across is mostly from person to person. It's peer-to-peer or company-based, I would say. Again, I've already touched on that. Like, a lot of the problems with the faunus discrimination is not political. You can't show that otherwise. It's person-to-person stuff. It's in working that down. Showing that has to be on a person-to-person basis. I should have Roman do something racist at some point. Because he has a bit of racism in him. I'm not gonna lie about that. Roman's still not a great guy. People wonder about that. Is Blake going to have actual solutions to these problems, or is this rewrite going to assume the White Fang is wiped out, then everyone would get along great? Blake right now is focused on the holy shit, there is a coup happening that's going to destabilize the geopolitical landscape. I'm sorry if she doesn't have a plan beyond that at current, but the idea of, look, guys, I understand this is a problem, but you're going to destroy the world as a consequence, takes precedence. That's the issue that takes precedence. So, like, that's the issue that needs solving. Like, she's focused on that. Now that things are done with that, we might get some more meditation on, like, how to solve the solution, how to solve the problem, how to actually solve the problem. And I think people are probably going to be angry at me, regardless of whatever route I take it. So I'm just going to take it the one that I think Blake would go down. Calling a random faun a street scum or something like that? No, you call him a critter. That's the curse word. Weird thing about that, I learned that's actually an insult for actual people in real life. That was not intentional. It was a suggestion from a fan. I'm still gonna use it because it works in universe, but holy hell, racists in our world. I mean, they are terrible. Jesus Christ, guys. People are people. Like, don't dehumanize them, man. Yeah. How many parts of this person's comment? I think this is the last one. Nope. There's more. I think there's 3 parts to it. The regrowing of the arm must also be able to regrow other organs such as Cinder's heart, I assume. Yes. This will be a steady process. Yeah, I didn't know that too. But like I didn't know that about those words. But like the same time, use them in the fictional setting, it makes the commentary all the more poignant, I guess, because I mean, again, I think in RWBY there's a little more weight there to the racism. I don't want to say justified, because racism is never justifiable, but understanding where it came from. I think there's more in the RWBY universe to understanding racism than in reality, where I think racism is largely has less behind it in terms of justification. I don't want to use justification because it feels sickening to me. I don't want to justify racism in any way. This is a very muddled subject. I'd much rather keep it within the realms of RWBY. So let's move on. What was the White Fang plan again? I've already touched upon that. Raven's plan was derailed by Cinder. Raven didn't actually want to kill them. Why'd she save Crow? She didn't save Crow. I don't know where you're getting that from. She was just trying to kill him, and he would have flown away otherwise. Which people was that slur against? I ain't answering that question, buddy. You can look it up if you want. Urban Dictionary is probably your friend on that. I wonder if burying the relic would work to hide it. It's a delay tactic. Burying the relic is a delay tactic because she can't destroy it. What's your thoughts on Unicorn of War's rewrite of Volume 8? I have not watched it. And I don't know if I would have really that high of opinion of it because it still keeps a lot of previous volumes as canon, which create a lot of compounding issues. So no matter how you spin it, there's a reason why I'm doing a ground up rewrite. Blake reacting to Roman. There was no time to show Blake's reaction to Roman. I can probably bring that up. I think it'd be great to have him be a little racist towards her and have her kind of being like, dude, what the fuck? Why are you allying with this guy again? It's like, he's kind of our boss now. And Blake just be like, yeah, no, keep me away from him. I could see that being a reaction. I would probably like to have a scene like that next volume. It's an interesting dynamic. Where and how does the Seeker get around? The Seeker is sneaky, and it can fly. It could just float into the sky and go away. It's been hiding probably wherever it wants to. Yeah, Raven was using teleportation to separate Crow, correct? You cannot escape Raven. It's ironic to her character. Yeah, Raven is the one character you can't escape from, but also is the one you can't find. Monsters versus Grimm. I imagine even though Grimm exist, there would still be monsters that weren't Grimm in their lore. I mean, we create monsters all the time in our lores, in our stories, and we still have things like bears. Bears are horrifying. You ever seen a shaved bear? This is nightmare fuel. And they exist in real life. Why do we need to invent monsters? So yeah, I don't find very deep value in it. This is the comment about power scaling. There's also that in here. Have you made a chart of power scaling? I don't like making charts about power scaling. There are elements that compose a character that make them different scale power against different characters. Like, every fighting in the show is just like any other character interaction. It's all about seeing different divergent traits play off each other. It's all about these, Cinder's brute force method of doing things versus Ruby's speed is my favorite example of this, where it's like Ruby is radically underpowered compared to Cinder, but she is much more in tune with her own skill set in order to actually fight back against Cinder. Bad PS is when you put numbers up to it and take away things to play how things play off each other. Yes, that is bad power scaling. I don't like power scaling as a concept in terms of like, oh, this character would totally outmatch this character. And it's like, guys, you're missing the point. How would these two characters interact given a scenario, given a circumstance where they would meet, given the place that they would meet? It's not just how would they fight against each other. This is why Death Battle, I think, has really poisoned the idea of power scaling even further than beyond, Ruby and all that. Sorry, further beyond than even, DBZ. I wish you communicated that better in fixing. There's only so much I can show, man. I tried to describe the battles as best I could, so you got an understanding of the dynamics that were at play. I didn't want to say, at no point do I ever want to say this character is clearly outmatched by this character unless it's absolutely true. Like, Hazel storm-rolling everyone until he electrocutes Nora, and she's like, oh, now I can fight. You ever thought about making fixing series for franchises that have lore made up on the fly, like Five Nights at Freddy's or Dragon Ball? No. God, no. I'm never going near Five Nights at Freddy's in terms of like fixing the lore. That lore is already insane enough. I don't need to bother with it. My cat is awake. Hi, Jax. How you doing, buddy? You want to go out? Where you going, buddy? How you doing? He is confused by the dividers. Oh well. Moving on to the next question. So Mercury is still better than Yang by a small margin? A little bit. Here, I'll let you out, cat. Come on. Come on, kitty cat. Everyone say hello to my cat. Alright, let's go. It'd be really hard to answer questions with him on my lap all stream. That's why I put him out. Alright. Close the blinds because it's getting dark out. Almost ripped out my microphone cord. That. So one of Oz's previous predecessors was Hazel's sibling. Then which one of Oz's hosts was Hazel's sibling? I literally said he was my host prior to you, to Roman. So it was the Ozpin that we knew. It was the Ozpin that we knew that was Roman's. That was Ozpin's prior host. Am I going to touch on fairy tales? No. I'm not going anywhere near that garbage. I've seen one episode of it, and it infuriated me. Which was the Faunus episode. Its explanation for the Faunus and how it came to be, and the idea there's a Faunus god, and it enrages me. So much. I don't want to watch any of the fairy tales. And I mentioned this before. Nora and Ren versus Raven issue was never touched on. I just couldn't get to it. Couldn't get around to it. Dragon Ball comes back to being the unpatched anime where everyone else got patches. Yep. I'd say make your fairy tales for fixing RWBY. You just want to make more fairy tales, Twilight. Didn't you just die inside when the god of animals abandoned the animals to the humans, Lamau? Yes. I loved it when they tried to explain that the faunus discrimination was just because people had animal ears. That's literally it. They're still sentient humans. There's no other reason. No weird social issues. No weird. There was no cultural clashing. There was no weird biological issues that cropped up. There was no territory issues. These were people from the village that came back with animal ears, and the people in the village were like, "Yeah, no, fuck you." It makes no sense. It's like, look, if someone came back and had antlers, I'd just be like, well, that's weird. Okay. Like, if they were like to say, oh, you're cursed, maybe, but like that's really pushing it. This is when I learned how to work the highlighter. Ruby and Roman sitting in a tree. You had Ruby like nudge Roman a few episodes prior for some comment about having good taste in women. That felt off to me. I don't remember what line that was. I don't think she'd care, or it would just be some sort of squinted. Oh no, I remember. That's confusion. That was Roman commenting on Crow's taste in women, not Ruby. So that's already cleared up. You also had him refer to Ruby instead of Red at some point when it felt off. That was actually very important. That was very, very intentional. Because suddenly Roman is no longer in his kind of jovial, kind of laissez-faire, devil-may-care mood. He knows now the White Fang is involved, and he's like, oh crap. And he's not calling Ruby by her nickname because it's serious. It's very serious. That's why. But yeah, so that's the dynamic. Ruby never commented on his taste in women. I don't recall that. If I did, that was a really weird thing to write, or maybe there's context that clarifies it, but I don't recall that. Abe, buddy, we're finally at your questions. And considering how long this is, I'm going to go use the restroom. I'll be right back.
return! I return! Yep. Ugh. All right. So is Airflow going to be canon like RWBY D&D that Rooster Teeth hosted? I have no clue, man. I don't even know if the D&D... Because D&D, and their D&D campaign introduced a new god. Why are they introducing so many freaking gods? Alright, Abe. Let's do this. Ilya cuffed to the desk despite being in charge of comms. Before, it was a little weird that she was given responsibility, but now it made it even weirder by the fact that we're only just learning she's also been cuffed the whole time. That's a perspective issue on, like, the art and the, like, it was noted that she was, I had in my notes that she was chained to the desk. It was just a matter of, like, the close-up didn't give you the view of her being chained down. But basically the reason she was given responsibility is that she was chained to a table. It's like, all right, you want to do this job? You can do this job, but you're sitting right here, and we're going to be right next to you the whole time. Like, they kept her on a tight leash, even if she wanted to help. Blake effectively stumbles upon the chop shop. We've already addressed this. Gira and Cali's first fight is over a decision to let Ilya go. Okay, dude, better at least than nothing. You had this really big thing where you really wanted Gira and Cali to fight, and I don't understand it because I think you complain later about the fact that they kind of get over it, but like they're practicing what they preach right here, right there, where it's like we argue over things, we make a compromise, even if neither of us are happy about it. They did that, and now, lo and behold, I demonstrated that. They're a good couple because they work through their problems. That was the big thing, and that's part of the reason why Blake is acting the way she does towards Yang. Is like, I want to work through things with Yang because I feel terrible about it, and I know I was in the wrong. Like, I want... Using the parents as an example. These are the most stable parents in the entire show. And they're supposed to be. Like, they serve that kind of purpose. I don't get it where you really wanted them to fight. Do you have an okay home life, man? Like, I'm worried about you. Like, parents fight, yes, but they don't always have to end in bitter things. Oh my fucking goodness gravy, they're all in one place at once. Not to assume this, but why I interpreted Fat Man meant... Yeah, I think it really was. That was a part of a problem that Fat Man just didn't like, that everyone wound up at the same place at the same time again. By compressing so much of Blake's storyline to S4, you freed up a lot of time in S5, which you could have spent setting up separating the villains among Mistral. No, I don't think I could have. I don't think I could have. There was nowhere for them to go when you look at their overall goals. The best I could have done is like thrown Hazel somewhere with Adam's forces, but even then, they would have been Hazel versus Blake and Sun, maybe? There would have been no Hazel fighting this volume. It just didn't work out. The biggest point was that they did meet up, and it was making that all feel diegetic. John could have reduced Emerald's aura to 0 in much the same way that Raven had done to Weiss. If you'd done that, then the one she had later used her Salem attack thing, she wouldn't have had much aura regenerated, so doing it would have heavily strained her and made her pass out, so Hazel carries her from the get-go instead of mid-chase. Well, the problem is, semblances don't work on aura in Fixing RWBY. They work on the phantom muscle. They work on exhaustion. They exhaust the person instead of aura. So, it wouldn't have helped. She would have still done that. And also, John wouldn't just sit there relentlessly beating on someone. Like, holy shit, dude. The fuck? It's not like he knows how much aura she has.
Any strike could have broken through and killed her. Because again, aura is damage reduction, not damage prevention. You really set a precedent at the end of S3 with Adam's power level, so I'm glad he can actually hold his own. That being said, you've made it so that no one but Blake, who he's been holding back against, would ever survive more than a minute with him. I don't think he's been holding back against her necessarily. It's more that Blake knows him. She knows his fighting style, so she's much better at being able to fight him. It's not something you can easily convey to people. Like, you have to shout orders to them, and they have reaction time to contend with. Is Hazel outperforming Cinder, even though she's a full maiden? It's like, yes, he's really good at what he does. Being a maiden doesn't make you a god. It doesn't make you automatically the best person on the field. It makes you powerful, but if you don't use that power wisely, like Cinder doesn't, it's not going... The most creative thing she does in that fight is turn the floor to ice, and that's where she starts getting desperate to turn things. Hazel redesign. More abs on the side. There. Hazel design, redesign done. Mad props for Raven getting her daughter killed and not even confirming the kill. She didn't have time. She had to get the relic and get out. Like, she did confirm the kill. No, she didn't close Vernal's eyes. She went into the vault, got the relic, and came out. And I think, was it Yang that was the one that closed her eyes? No, wait. I thought I'm trying to remember because it's been a while since I've watched my own video. I believe I had Raven actually go over and close Vernal's eyes, go in, get the relic, and come out. Raven didn't fully reduce Weiss's aura. That's a very slow drain on the aura. It's not going to, like... It's not going to actually do much in the long run. Because you're not putting much pressure on it, ultimately. Salem is an ugly wraith thing instead of being middle-aged and veiny. Coomer's malding. She's both. You can see her designs on the Sketchy Huntsman Twitter. She has both elements to her. She kind of has a transforming aspect to her. And we'll expand on that in future volumes. Ruby is able to move Hazel. Good way of justifying this by making it so that he's mid-step, so it's very easy to make him lose his balance. No, she's just fast. It's mass times speed. She's accelerating so fast she can push. And also, thank you, Alex Devilman, for the subscription. So she pushes him back through just sheer speed alone. She can do that. She's done that before. Final words for Lily. This one peeved me. Not every character needs final words. Sometimes it's more tragic if you have characters not have final words. Why would you... And sometimes you just, like, it's forcing it. Like, if she... Lily should have heard Weiss's previous words to Vernal, telling her she's never been broken before. Much like now, I thought she should have laughed in a girly way half a season ago. She should have cried much the same way as a whimpering child. You're not understanding the character. She's... I just don't think you... That's not Vernal. That's not her. Yang picks up her sister's body and carries it to the surface. For all she knows, she's still needed upstairs, so I'm not sure why she needed to pick her up at that point, unless she thought that she might still be alive, refusing to acknowledge that Raven had just abandoned her too. The elevator also takes a while to lower and rise, so maybe she could have just been in denial, not even checked if she was still alive. It's kind of in shock and out of respect. Do you have plans for why Salem can't just be trapped or captured? Rough plans. There are a lot of ideas floating around about Salem and about certain things involving Salem and Osmond's backstory that I can't wait to get to. And so, like, it's not that Yang didn't want anything to do with Vernal, especially after the last confrontation. Yang started to pick up on, this girl is just scared and alone. She needs help. And Yang was starting to warm up to her in that last moment where, like, basically, Vernal was like, look, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Yang was like, damn, maybe I can help. And Vernal was like, no, I must be with my mother. Rushes away. That's, overcompensate for what I thought was a weak funeral? How many funerals have you been to, man? Because, isn't it a cliche in anime to have final words? It is. It is very... I like avoiding it. I like the shock value of her death. And the idea that it's actually kind of a slow, painful one where she can't speak. She can't get the words out. The Ruby unintentionally rubbed me the wrong way because I thought the question made her look like an insensitive dope, only for me to realize 2 seconds later that I only felt that way because there wasn't a scene where Ruby learned about her stepsister. Has now had another stepsister. Half-sister, not stepsister. That's a completely different thing. Weiss doesn't speak, and she always has something to say, and her silence could have been really powerful if the rest of the scene was great. But she was silent. Yang stumbled over herself. Let's say, when I watched the scene, looking at how Yang didn't want anything to do with Lily. Yang had to be the quote. When she was the first one to lead the funeral, after being the first one to speak, I came to the same conclusion again. What she said wasn't even bad. It just bothered me that that was it. What do you say at that? It's just like... I'll get to that, Jay. It's coming up. Are you planning to introduce Salem in Volume 6 similar with Canon Volume 4's introduction to Salem? I'm playing with ideas with Salem. There's a lot about Salem up in the air that I need to have solidify. There was a comment in here about her, like, making a joke in the middle of it when it's really just her being awkward and kind of laughing off her own fault in things, and Vernal's fault. Like, she's just like, I mean, it's both our faults. Like, people stumble over their words. It's okay. It's not a joke. It's literally just a thing that happens. People are very raw like that. Oh yeah, Yang had a joke near the end of the beginning of the eulogy. She does immediately apologize for it. No, it's just her just being like, look, I mean, like, it was really it was both our faults. She was correcting herself. She was stumbling over her words. This is a funeral for someone that wasn't really well known. The only person that really knew Vernal well enough to give her a proper send-off was Weiss. And she was so choked up over Vernal's death, she couldn't bring herself to say words. Meanwhile, Ruby and Blake hadn't even met Vernal before the fight. Actually, I don't think Blake ever met Vernal. And Yang only knew Vernal for a short time before realizing, holy crap, this is my sister, and I know almost nothing about her. And so she was the one trying to give a eulogy to someone that she wanted to care about, but never got the time to. That's the tragedy of the scene. Oh my god, I finally put my thoughts in place on this. I was all over the place. It took a while. I'm sorry about that. You intend to keep Maria in the story? You'll have to find out in Volume 6. Again, quoth Miles, no spoiler questions. To add insult to injury, we immediately transition to Roman and Neo, who you're ship teasing, being cutesy with each other. Holy tonal whiplash, Batman. We faded off from a serious scene and faded in on a light-hearted one that was basically it was just nice and soft. It's like you're coming down from a hard hitting moment and you just need a nice gentle come down, and It's this just soft little scene between two people who are very intimately familiar with each other, leading into a much more relaxed scene. It says this is the epilogue. This is basically like you can consider this the epilogue scene of the season, where everything's kind of wrapping up. Yang was the only one that could speak. Again, Weiss just couldn't bring words. First of all, the scene, schedule, very tasteful of you to use my dialogue the last time we were scene setting. You have Yang vent about a feeling sort of like, only to come back and write up a scene knowing full well I don't like Bumblebee. Okay, first of all, I did not use your words for the Bumblebee scene, for the Yang and Weiss scene in the spa. We're getting to that question at some point, I know that. I didn't use your words. That was written late at night between, I think it was a conversation between me, Coffee, and JJ, and a few others, I think, at the time, like the rotating cast in there. Probably Sino, probably Aiden at some point. We all had input on that, and we all worked through that scene. A lot of the language from that scene was directly pulled from the original show, because it was still pretty decent, it just needed a little more tacked in there. So it was just refined, basically. It was a refined version of the scene from Volume 5 in a better setting. And secondly, again, Yang and Blake are not completely on better terms. There is forgiveness there. They're trying to move on, but the injuries are going to linger. This is just the characters acknowledging, look, we're both hurt. We were both in a bad place. We're in better places now. Let's try and work towards something. And there's going to still be conflict with them. Like, they're not made up. The reason I had this scene is to actually give a sort of buffer to where they start out in Volume 6, leading into the conflict between them in Volume 6 that needs to be resolved, that really was just sort of resolved in Volume 6 without any kind of fanfare. So relax. Where was it from? Because I've read it before. Where was what from? Where was the lines from? They were from the dialogue between, like, especially the scene where Weiss was like, my father told my mother that he didn't love her when I was 10. That scene was lifted. No, that at least that explanation was lifted almost wholesale from the Yang and Weiss scene in Volume 5. I'm trying to remember what episode it was. Still, like, there's a lot. How is it, my good sir? From Justin Brumty. Some youthful chic, but an old lady seems really odd. The Shiloh scene was sadder than the funeral scene. It's not a requirement the funeral be seen in an episode, but just felt like a formality. It felt like I went to a wedding, instantly realized that neither bride nor groom even liked the event. It sort of is that way. I mean, I'm not going to deny that's not a wrong interpretation, because Shiloh has a deeper investment in Lily, and learning that she's dead is huge to him. He is a father that could never actually be a father, learning that his daughter is now dead. Like, he tried to play father, but he couldn't ever be the full father. Oh, damn, Victor! Thank you so much! Holy crap! Did you have a comment with that? Or you just you are amazing? Wow! Thank you! Thank you, Victor! But yeah, to kind of round it off, it's an awkward scene because the girls don't know how to take it. Weiss is the only one that could really give a proper eulogy, and she can't bring herself to speak. She's too broken up over it. Done lingering on this. Let's move along. But yeah, the Shiloh scene was probably going to hit harder in certain ways. Yang helps Blake get into the ship. Yeah, she's a big girl. She can get it. It's her giving. It's literally her extending an arm. It's her giving an olive branch, man. it's symbolic. It's Yang being like, yeah, come on. If you're willing to come along for the ride this time, it's Yang being like, look, the road's going to be bumpy, just like it was last time, and you ran. Are you really ready for this? And Blake was like, I'm willing to give it a shot. This was on the onsen episode, I believe. The whole scene can still be cringe, even if I don't explicitly say they're all grown so much. The scene still shows how far they've come by voicing their high points, but at no point do you balance it up by mentioning their low points. Dude, you must be a lot of fun at friendly parties, because, you know, friends often go over and like, hi there, man, how's it going? I've been doing great. Also, I have cancer. But let's have some margaritas. Can you ask the Sketchy Huntsman later where they posted it? Where Yang is yelling that half? I don't remember. I wrote that myself. Like, I typed that myself. I don't remember. Like, people might have given me suggestions along the way. It might have been suggested by one of the comments along the way, but I remember like, oh, we can have this here and use it in this way. I don't remember taking anything from anyone. Yeah, it's really weird. Though you do complain about mood whiplash, and yet you want people to start talking about how bad they've been, how terrible everything's been, when they're all literally together for the first time in almost a year. Like, that's really weird, man. Like, people want to celebrate. We're happy. We're all our friends are back together. Even the crime lord's happy. It's really weird. Yang's nervous tick suddenly goes from having her arm shake to biting her lip. Why? You've brought attention. Just the thing people do. People bite their lip. It's fine. It's not a big deal. Relax. Like, it's not Yang being anxious. It's Yang being unsure, like unconfident. People, I don't know about that. People will bite their lip for that. It's not a nervous tick. It's just sort of like, I don't know. I hope I don't seem too overly aggressive with this. Just like, you have these comments, and I was like, I'm confused by a lot of them more so than anything. 15-16, we get 2 episodes back to back where same characters spend most of their time relaxing. Be less of a problem if you experiment with episode lengths, but this is all just one big relaxing episode at 20 minutes long. I mean, you say that, and yet Yang has a full-on breakdown in Weiss's arms in the second episode. And also, one of them is characters literally getting caught up to pace and making demands and being evaded in those demands by Ospen because he's sneaky. So I don't know what you're getting at here. Things are happening. They are still happening in these episodes. There's a lot of character growth. Most of it's character growth, but things are still happening. Hey, you wanted them to poke fun at each other. They still do. I was giving the bullet points. I couldn't show the whole scene. You were the one complaining about bloat in the season. Complaining about how long everything was. Like, you want that level of detail where it's like they're poking fun at each other and all that such, and giving shots, and yet at the same time you're like, oh, you're giving too much detail here for things. You can let the artist speak for yourself. You confuse me, man. You confuse me. It contradicts what you said. 16, bathing scene between 2 18-year-olds and a 16-year-old. Kind of based, not gonna lie. Okay, but in all seriousness, it's supposed to be taken from Mistral custom, and no one is uncomfortable being naked. They got over their uncomfortableness, with the exception of John, after they hit the showers. Like, Ren and Nora are used to it. Ruby's probably a little nervous, but once Yang is okay with it, she's probably in. Like, Yang would probably make her feel more confident. Weiss too. You think I'd look awesome with a flat top? No. No. Lord, no. Or unless you're talking, like, with my current length, where I just, like, do everything straight up. like Gerald from Hey Arnold. In which case, still no, I am not doing that. Does he have a channel? I don't think he has a channel. Give that Oz has probably spent millennia trying. Gets him bothered. I think John in that scene is actually wearing a swimsuit. He actually is wearing swim trunks because he's awkward. He's uncomfortable with it. Hold up, be right beat. I'm going to continue. You can rewind if you need, man. I'm going to address these. I guess I'm only bothered by because Roman calls Neo flat while Weiss practically was there for 3 volumes. I'm gonna pump the brakes on that because you got that completely wrong. He was referring to Weiss. He was talking about Weiss. He was not talking about Neo. He does not refer to Neo that way. Neo is Neo to him. He doesn't give her like a cutesy nickname necessarily. He just calls her Neo. Oh, the Ruby Fimmelton. I gotta say, the series helped through quarantine when I found this. Quick question, will there be a Ty and Raven moment, or is Raven done for the time being? Yeah, Abe, I do actually look forward to your comments, because they're at least interesting to respond to, and you make good points at times, you make bad points at times, and regardless, it's always interesting to have you here. I guess it is, so I'm glad this series helped you through quarantine, man. I'm really happy. Whether or not Raven is done is largely up to how Rooster Teeth handle her in the future, and I would hopefully in the last 3 volumes find a way to work her back in some regard. Yeah, Neo in itself is just adorable. He loves Neo, and he's not insulting Weiss. Like, people thought he was insulting Weiss. He's not insulting Weiss. He's commenting that Weiss is flat and still very much a woman. He's like, oh, yeah, she's fine. Like, so anyway, let's see. Okay, so they def fucking yes and no. And I'll leave it up for interpretation. Neo is peak cute. Neo is adorable. I love Neo. She is a perfect murderous sociopath. Let's see. Nora and Ruby don't really do anything to help Yang. Their stories have only just crossed paths again, but there's also a good opportunity for them to reconnect and show how close they are. Ruby was actually worried about Yang. They were all worried about Yang. It's just no one knows how to approach that subject. Weiss is the only one that, like, kind of understood. Do a breakdown on the joke for the record? Okay, so let me pull up the script. Going up, going up, going up. There's a lot of script. Okay, so that's 2021. This is episode 16, so I gotta keep going to 18, 17. Okay. So, okay, first of all, we get Roman being like, wait, Ren's a guy? It's like, oh, because he's very effeminate. Ren is a very effeminate guy, and Roman is constantly like, oh, hey, yeah, you're fine. You're actually very pretty, like in a feminine way. You're very attractive in that way. Like, you're a dude, but you're pretty like a lady. So with that, it was like, you know, he's trying to be like, okay, well, I was wrong, but I'm being very complimentary. You're very attractive in like a feminine sense. And he's trying to basically like flounder through his words because he doesn't know how to word it. And when it gets down to like Ren making arguments, how could you think I'm a guy? I have all these attributes. He says, I have no breasts. And Roman's immediate response is, neither does what was it? Neither this Little Miss Snowcone. I have no breasts, to which Roman replies, and neither does Little Miss Snowcone. And that's referring to Weiss. It's referring to Weiss. And he's like, neither does she, and it doesn't make her any less of a woman. He is very much saying that Weiss is in fact a woman. She is flat, but she is woman. He's effectively saying flat is justice. All right, let's not beat around the bush. He's just like, yeah, she's fine. So anyone that was like, people were enraged about that line. I'm like, why? It also, Roman is not a good guy. He makes these weird comments. It's fine. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail that from Abe. So yeah, Ruby and Nora didn't really do anything to help Yang. Nora, actually, you could be very interested in interpreting things. Why did she jump in when she did? It's very possible that she could have been listening in. Maybe she jumped in to break the tension. So yeah, that's you don't know, like, it's just that Ruby and Nora are not really equipped to emotionally decompress Yang in quite the same way that Weiss is. Yeah, no, it was Weiss. It was Weiss, Abe. So I can kind of get the confusion a little bit. We followed Blake for a quarter of a minute. Dude, buddy, you don't even know how long you end up being after storyboarding. It's a turn of phrase, man. It's like, oh, we follow her for a little bit. Like, we have a little bit of time of just following her through the hallways. That's all I'm saying there. You know you're using the term best friend too much when the villains start using it too. I don't know what you're referring to there. Lamafau, Blake can't stop accidentally setting rooms on fire. True. Feather Note. This is a pretty fun stream, Celtic. Your series on Fixing RWBY has been extremely fun as someone who also has had issues with the series as a whole. Also, just really bad at asking questions. I'm glad. Thank you for the support. Damn, man. And I'm glad you're enjoying the series. It's really been a lot of fun to make this. Stressful too, but you know, everything that you put your passion into is going to have a little bit of stress. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm really happy people are really responding well. It's really picking up. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited by all this. Okay, Vernal should have said something related to family or honor or something. Not this Spider-Man. Everybody gets one line. Abe, I want you to think back to Volume 4 briefly. And remember a very specific phrase that was used by Crow in reference to a policy that Raven has. I want you to take a moment and think about that. I'll wait. Oh, good night, Aaron DX. Have a good night, man. It'd be cool if Grim Pets were a thing. Oh, dude, during the art stream, someone remind me to show you the original Wendigo design from Over the Seas. Because I found it. I found the original design for the Wendigo in Over the Seas, and it's adorable. It's one of the best ideas we ever had for that series. Waiting on Abe. You know you're allowed to jump into the onsen. You're not allowed to jump in. Also, you can't contaminate it with some of the props they had, like rubber ducks in the pool ring. It's Nora. Well, yes, I will turn back into a small detail from a year ago I have surely committed to memory. It's a callback. It was a callback line. It was a callback to how Raven views people. Because Raven is like, everybody gets one. That was the policy she used to save Yang. And this is Vernal basically saying, I am following in my mother's footsteps. And it's painful. So, I wanted to poke fun at you for not remembering that. It's fine. Ranger Kern, holy Jesus, please break up the group going forward. Please, they're so close to having Crow become an 11th wheel again. His voice sucks in RWBY proper now. Denial and pure copium is pure copium. At least make him cool and fixing by limiting his on-screen presence. You don't know how stories work. People get the amount of screen time they need. That's kind of how you work it. You need and work and push and pull and get everything in there. So Crow will be treated as he needs to be. Finally, on from Abe's comments, because God knows my throat is tired. This is actually near the very end. But hilarious. Let's see. Nora knows how to get Weiss. Okay. Hey, you guys criticize the writers for making it obvious how they are old men that don't know how young girls talk, pointing out how they talk about boys and fashion too much. And in this, you have Nora, probably one of the least to care about it, go crazy over fashion of a kimono. Not the first time that fashion topic was used in a gag, though I'm curious how this is a homage for just making fun of the original writing. This was actually just a character beat. One, Nora knows how to distract Weiss. This shows that Nora actually understands Weiss a little bit and shows that Nora has a little more depth to her. She understands how to break tension and to like kind of get people invested. She's listing off all the things she cares about. The food, the festivities, the people. And then she's realizing that Weiss isn't really biting and she's like, the fashion? Not to say that she doesn't have an interest in fashion herself. One thing is that Nora was poor. Nora and Ren were orphans and destitute. So them having an interest in fashion to some degree from a perspective of someone who couldn't have those things, I think fits the character in a way that's kind of interesting. It's just not it's not picked on quite much yet, but it could be. The only thing I have played is with Neo sneaking into the men's bath and snuggling up against Roman disguised as John. It's mildly disturbing. As it probably should be. Because Neo and Roman aren't perfect people. They aren't good guys. I mean, they're getting there. They're fighting for the good side. Or at least what we think is the good side. What we think is the morally good side. But they're still criminals. They still have bad bones in their body. Not going to fix it overnight. So... this is... Were there other and practical uses for Grim remains outside of decoration and armor? I hadn't considered that. Possibly, I could definitely see like Grim work bone like tools or items, kind of like ivory. Do they never decompose? They could probably be ground up and used as fertilizer. They do decompose over time, unless... well, I'm not sure. They decompose like any other bone, which decompose very slowly. Oh yeah, the alligator floaty thing was an artist choice, but we can get into that in the art stream. It was actually a miscommunication, which was great. Making a dust type. It can't be used to make a dust type. It can't be used to do that. Oh, this is the last question. All right. That's the last of the questions. I'm sure there were more, but I didn't get to earlier videos. And I honestly don't have time nor the effort to scroll through them. So instead, we're going to flip over to the Tundra and get questions there. I'm going to end the questions where they currently are, so we don't get any more. So here's that. If you have questions about fixing RWBY, Volume 5, you can ask them there. Okay, so here we go. Alpha, Beta, Omega, Sim. What was your most favorite episode to write, and what was your least favorite episode to write? Episode 11 was my least favorite to write. Because you had to get... well, the first half is fine. Like, getting Yang and Neo in the bike chase with the bandits was fine. But the very end conversation with Raven and Vernal and Weiss, that had to go through multiple reworks, and was the biggest pain in the ass to rework that. Similarly with episode 12's conversation in the yurt. Those had to go through a lot of rewrites. They were very, very painful to get through. Favorite episode to write, however, the shortest one. I'm kidding. Probably Onsen. That one was the most fun to write, just because it was kind of zany and loony, little bit of fun there. I guess I could share this screen. Let me properties. Here we go. B.R. Jacobs, what would you say is the hardest character to write for? Leo is a little tricky. Raven is very complicated. She's very simple yet complicated, so like figuring her out was hard. Hardest, like, to restrain is Roman. Roman is just really hard to restrain because he's so charismatic. He overpowers things. John, Ren, and Nora didn't do too much this volume. Yang is probably hardest to write. Yang and Blake, they're pretty hard to write. Actually, I take that back. Yang is easier to write. Blake, because Yang is a little more blunt force stuff. Blake is a little more tricky to write because she has to go through a character arc that we've not really established in the canon show. Unlike Yang, who has a much clearer path forward, Blake doesn't really. I'm kind of flying blind with a lot of Blake's stuff. Any particular reason behind the scene transitions you were doing? I like smooth screen transitions. Like, you're allowed to have screen transitions. It's fine. I don't see a problem with it. Every artist has their own kind of thing. I like the smooth transitions of things. Promars, is there anything you were dissatisfied with or you change in particular? I was really sad that I couldn't get Nora and Ren versus Raven. I was really sad. There were lines that I had to cut for the Saria scene that I mentioned that I liked what I read out there and how I delivered it, but ultimately I was shouted down, and I think it was the right call, even though it made me sad. I really hate that I have to keep Cinder alive. I really wish I could kill her, but I don't feel like, especially now, I don't feel it's like really a conclusion to her story. It would feel really weird to kill her here. G Darkon, will there be a bigger difference with Salem's backstory, like changes made more interesting to still be the same? There will be changes. Osmond and Salem's backstories are getting changes. Brown Jacker, the amount of hours and effort and everyone involved in the project and absolutely sign. On a scale of 1 to 10, how proud are you of everyone's work so far? Solid 10. This has been... We have gone entire episodes in this volume completely without any footage from the original canon. In fact, we rarely used images from the original canon. I think there was maybe like 5 or 6 instances where we did. Everything else was originally created. Or me using my stick figures. There was a lot in here, and I'm so proud of everyone. Everyone went above and beyond. Aiden and his animation literally learned that this volume. So that amazing animation at the very end was learned over the series of like 7 months at most. But we'll get into that in the art stream. Or the art streams. There's going to be multiple. Legion, it seems there was a spike in Cinder's power level when fighting Ruby and Jean to fight Raven. Was Cinder holding back the fight? No, they're both just much more blunt force characters. And there's less to worry about because Ruby could outspeed her. Or at least match speed her, which she wasn't used to. A beta tester and a cheater. What was Yang's plan, or what was she expecting to find when she jumped down the vault solo after Vernal, Raven, and Cinder? She didn't really have one other than to probably stop someone from doing something. Probably just to stop Cinder. She was really going after Cinder more than anything. Legion, are we going to set a part of 2 discussion Magic for Semblance in the next season? It still seems pretty vague. Yeah, probably. I don't know how quickly it'll be addressed. Oh my god. Okay, yeah, I need to finish this off by getting a drink. Be right back. I'm just gonna fill it in the tap. Oh, delicious bathroom tap water. Oh yeah, Mint as well with his animation. No, he wanted to learn animation before the volume. Aiden was the surprise. Mint was the I want to do some animation. I was like, okay, man, we can do a little animation. Ilya Purple Cat asks, how does a thing with two personalities in Ozma's body work in RWBY and personality? I think it's a diffusion of Ozpin into Roman. And, like, the line between them is going to start becoming grayer and grayer as things go on. But we'll explore that later. It's subject to change. Especially because I don't know how Volume 9 is going to handle it with Oscar. Will there be a very serious changes with the prehistory of Ozma and Salem? Yes, there will be changes. Who was that dead girl from the farm to Roman Torchwick? The sister or the girl he was in love with? It was his childhood friend. They were too young to really, like, have a romance. They were just kids. Is Neo Roman's girlfriend, or who is she to him? Or has the issue not been resolved yet? It's however you want to interpret it. They're their own thing. They are Roman and Neo, and that's all they care about. 5 questions from Yojak. Was making Neo a maiden ever a thought in your mind heading into any season of Fixing RWBY? No, I've never considered that. What do you think your biggest challenges are going to be for RWBY Volume 6? Figuring out what to change, because Volume 6 is, there are things at the end that obviously need changing. The mech fight, for example, is terrible. But there's a lot of good things in there that are just okay. They're not extraordinary. They're just okay. So figuring out how to take the okay elements and elevating them to excellent is going to be more of the challenge of Volume 6. Who is the easiest and most difficult character to write for? I've already answered this twice. What keeps you moving forward with RWBY? Like, what drives you to keep making it? Money! I'm kidding. No, it's... a lot of it's the fan response. A lot of people telling me, hey, man, I fell out of RWBY, and watching your videos made me get back into it. People being dissatisfied with RWBY and finding things that they love about it again through that. It's absolutely wonderful to feel that I can bring people into enjoying something again, enjoying something that lost value to them. So it's excellent to feel that. It's just a wonderful, warm thing. There have been several super chats, several people just general tonight commenting that, and it makes me feel amazing. To like the people can see in RWBY what I see in RWBY and enjoy it. Because the term of post regarding heat fauna cycles is credit for RWBY, can you directly address and clarify this so they can stop blowing it up out of proportion as a me haha floof's horny type thing? It's a background element meant to basically cause friction. It's something that's never directly addressed. There is a direct addressment of it to some degree. And I was going to save it as a reveal, but I'll save it as a reveal. I'm not going to be super caged about it as I usually have, but there is an element, a single character that this affects in a way that you're not expecting it to, because everyone thinks heat cycle, you immediately think, haha, horny, when in reality, there's a lot of horrifying implications that come with heat cycles. Like, there is a reason humanity evolved out of a heat cycle. Like, so, when people remember that, this is a massive disadvantage to the faunus in terms of biology. They have things to offset it in universe, but, like, it's absolutely galling that people ignore the downside. I was literally, when I came up with that, my main thought process was, what disadvantages do animals have versus humans? And one of them is a heat cycle that basically makes them unable to think about anything but shagging for a period of time. It's like, that is legitimately detrimental in a society where you can get killed for having negative emotions. Like, it's a disadvantage. It's been a disadvantage. It's supposed to be a disadvantage. It's been largely mitigated in the modern setting, but it's still a present threat to faunus. It's just not one that's brought up very often, because a lot of characters in life and death situations are going to be like, so tell me about your heat cycle. So it's a background element. It's a lore element. Leave it at that. Masquerade, happy birthday! I hope you enjoy your cake and ice cream. Oh, what kind of cake and ice cream? It's important. It's important. Honestly, oh my god, I could go right. I've not eaten anything all day. I could go for a slice of chocolate cake with vanilla frosting. I feel fat saying that, but I could go for that right now. Yes, death by horny. Exactly. How did you work out the system for Semblance and Aura? I just made them their own thing. You're welcome, Floof. Will we abandon John, Ren, and Nora at Argus considering how irrelevant they are? No spoiler questions. Don't make me get the meme. Alpha Beta Omega Sin asks, oh, and here's another question. Did you actually consider setting the scene where everyone relaxing in a bowling alley? What? I never considered that in a bowling alley. Red Velvet, good choice. Oh God, I've been trying to cut down on my sugar intake, but I really want cake. I might pick up some cake on my way to my friends. Suffering, making personal decisions is suffering. Why was the scene of Ruby telling Yang to go after Raven and the relic unchanged? Wouldn't it have been faster for Ruby to have done it with her speed semblance? Also, how was the island able to repel Grimm away? There is more to the lore that I hope to get into next season involving that. Did I make a joke about a bowling alley? Oh, yeah, that's right. I did make my joke about the bowling alley. I made it as a joke because a bowling alley would not have been really suitable to the setting. Like, I thought, like, an onsen... I was bullied into doing the onsen episode, and we can get into that in the artist streams. But I was bullied into it, but I wound up really loving the idea because it works really well for the idea of, thematically, stripping your characters naked and having them be raw in front of each other. Don't take that in a sexual light, though I know you're going to, because chat is always horny. The idea of, like, Yang, especially in the scene, is naked in front of Weiss. Emotionally. And, like, this is matching the fact that they are all naked, and they're fine with being naked. It's being... Or they're all nude around each other, but being naked is a state of mind. It's a state of being. Tiramisu cake. Oh my god, I could go for tiramisu. Stop making me hungry, chat! I wish them happy birthday! Why do people have a problem with the onsen scene? I mean, sure, they're naked, but not horny. Yeah, we tried to keep it as tasteful as possible. Or at least I tried to keep it as tasteful as possible. Some of the artists missed the memo, it seemed. But hey, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. For the isolation you've been in for a couple of years, I can blame you. You could just move to a better place, like, I don't know, Ohio, which has been open for a good year and a half now. Sean Foldark? Okay, so... And not to mention, everyone ignores there was a bunch of man service in that episode, too. Alright, but getting off the onsen, I thought it was actually a very thematically fitting area to have a conversation where one character had to basically lay her heart on the table and break down. I thought that was a good, like, once that got into my head, I couldn't unsee it, and I thought it worked really well. And again, the island thing, that's probably going to be addressed in the future. And it's not just the island, it's the ruins in general. Keep that in mind. It's the ruins that repel Grimm. Will Adam be killed in Volume 6? No spoiler questions. I didn't like how he was handled in the volume. He just became obsessed with Blake and became a super jealous ex-boyfriend. Even if he does die, will he be turned into a Grimm soldier or dead, even just alive, do you think? I'm not answering questions about future things, necessarily. I personally thought the backstory was fine. This is from Raven. He's cut off. Why the change to Hazel? The backstory makes no sense, even after we learn more context of it. He was pissed at Ozpin for getting his sister killed. And unless we assume she died on the springs in the initiation ceremony, we have to assume she was killed by Grimm on a mission when she wasn't ready. And so he blames Ozpin, the guy fighting the Grimm, for the death of his sister, who chose willingly her path into... Like, she made her choice, she went into a line of business that was going to probably get her killed in a ditch somewhere, and she died in a ditch somewhere, and he was mad about it at Ozpin. It makes Hazel look completely irrational as a person. It doesn't make him look out to be the stoic, calm, and understanding figure that he's made out to be. He looks like a delusional madman who's like, my sister made her own choices. I'm gonna blame you for them. And on top of it, it's like, oh, she was killed by Grimm. I'm gonna challenge the guy that's fighting the Grimm. I know he went to go kill Salem himself, but the fact that he wound up fighting Ozpin in the long run made no sense. The idea, however, that Ozpin infects someone's mind and deteriorates them from the inside out in some way, that has more merit. Because now he's not fighting the Grimm, he's fighting Ozpin. He's angry at Ozpin. And at first he might be angry at Salem for keeping the war going and necessitate Ozpin being there. But maybe there's more to it. Maybe there's more to it that we don't know. So that's why I changed Hazel's backstory. Ula Ula? What was the comment from Ula Ula? The Audition episode art was tasteful in my feminine opinion. It's just that people want an excuse to drag fixing RWBY through the mud. Like, look, they're degenerate for showing female shoulders. Yeah, and like Jay points out, it was hard pushed for by a female member of the team. She was the one that coined the phrase "onsen, onsen, onsen." God, that art stream's gonna be fun. It's Sonic fan. A lot of homeless. Rate of living there isn't cheap. I mean, to be fair, rate of living everywhere is going up. It's nasty out there. Like, I was thinking, with the success of Volume 5, I was looking at my finances, and I'm like, you know, give it one more year, I could move out, get my own place. And then I started looking at the market, and I'm like, oh, no. I don't think that's going to work out. It might not work out as soon as I have to get some books off the ground. But yes, that brings us to the end of the comments. Oh my god, that took us 3 hours! 3 hours! But hey, we got through a lot of comments. We didn't spend any time meandering. I don't need to do another stream for this. Instead, possibly next week, I'm hoping we get one of the art streams up. I'm going to try and categorize the art streams into different groups so we don't have 50 artists in one call, because there's 50 artists on this volume. But overall, I'm happy with this. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm glad we had 160, almost 190 people at one point at peak joining us. God, you have all been delightful. You have been a wonderful audience. Thank you all so much for joining me. I've had a blast explaining all this. Thank you all so much for watching. And I'll catch you all on... Wait, before I go, I wanted to say that. I'm tired, so my brain's not thinking right. Remember, if you want to support the channel, remember to like, subscribe, and ring that bell, so you get this generating the category. If you're watching this in the VOD, please remember to leave a comment down below. You can get it into the algorithm that way. If you want to support me directly, I have a Patreon. It's in the links down below. $1 or more, you get access to the Tundra, the Team Frostbite Discord server, where me, Fatman, Dashy Lee, and a whole host of other regular members, such as the Sketchy Huntsman, are regularly active. We love talking to you guys. We love hanging out, especially during special events like, for example, Bad Fanfiction Night, which I host, and I every Friday night around 10 p.m. As much as I can. I'm trying to get some of those actually out so that people can see some of the insanity that we've seen. Because, oh boy, there are some insane fanfics out there, and they're wonderful. We just read one last night that just went from dull to catapulted to absolute memedom. It was amazing. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the flip